Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. You have successfully designated the hidden stage, Erebus, as your holy territory. He really took Erebus as his holy territory. How is that possible? For a mortal, the message that popped up in front of the gods staying in Erebus meant the cause of their suffering disappeared in a flash. By the time the message faded away, the pressure on their bodies was lifted away. Erebus accepts your existence. Erebus accepts your existence. Erebus entirely accepts the subordinates of player ###. When their lost divinity returned, they felt the almost forgotten sensation of holy power entering their bodies again, as if they were back in the heavenly world. The gods of Olympus couldn't help but look at Yi and Wu with fearful eyes. The only reason holy power had returned to them was that the owner of this place, Yi and Wu, allowed their presence here. But if he revoked that permission, they wouldn't have any chance of victory. They would end up even weaker than when they had been trapped within Erebus. It was clear they were now leashed and chained. The word, subordinate, was already evidence of that. After Yi and Wu gave the order to take control of the temple, Hermes and the others moved rapidly to try to convince or suppress the gods of Olympus. Many of the other Olympian gods had followed them to Erebus, so Yi and Wu's subordinates were busy. The suppressed gods were surprised that Hermes and the others had incited a rebellion, but they were even more shocked to learn their master was immortal. The majority thought that it was absurd for divine beings to work under him, even if Yi and Wu was Hades' successor. However, when they learned from Ares and Athena that Yi and Wu had not only defeated Typhon and Persephone but sealed Mother Earth as well, they were completely shocked. However, they had no doubts since Athena and Ares had witnessed it. Demeter and Hera were especially silent after hearing the news, and their confused emotions were evident to those around them. For some time, Poseidon just looked at Yi and Wu wordlessly. He didn't shout or become angry, he only watched silently. It was impossible to know what he was thinking, but Yi and Wu wasn't particularly interested anyway, so he didn't return the look. As long as Poseidon didn't bother him, he didn't care what he thought of him, although Kronos was filled with regret over this relationship. Click. When Vigrid reassembled into Kronos, another heavy silence descended on the gods of Olympus. Open hollow corner bracket. It's been a while. And there are some new faces too. Those who remembered Kronos' tyranny grimaced, but those who only knew of his glory brightened. Of course, none of them could react too obviously. Poseidon, the very god who had pulled down Kronos from his throne, was still among them. Although he had lost a significant amount of his divinity, he still had a substantial influence over Olympus. Demeter and Hera stood stiffly without being able to speak as Kronos looked at Poseidon's cold gaze, and knelt in front of him, lowering his head. Thud. Open hollow corner bracket. I apologize for the past. Yi and Wu didn't have the courage to watch the rest and left. The other gods all followed him to give Kronos and Poseidon some space to speak. Quite some time had passed when Kronos returned. Are you alright? Open hollow corner bracket. Do I look alright? No. Open hollow corner bracket. If they could let of their long-held resentment so easily, then it wouldn't be resentment in the first place. Kronos muttered sadly. Although the demonism's invasion of his mind was the cause of the sins of his past, in the end, he was still the one who made those mistakes. There were no excuses. Open hollow corner bracket. If possible, I plan on seeing them many more times. And I'll apologize each time. What if they still don't forgive you? Open hollow corner bracket. I still have to go. It's my duty. Kronos' faint smile deepened. Open hollow corner bracket. And this way, at the very least, I'll be able to see my children's faces. I'm just sorry to you. Yi and Wu shook his head at the man who adored the children who despised him. But since Yi and Wu also once treated his father like he didn't exist, he wasn't in a position to say anything. Just then, Athena quietly approached him. The gate to Tartarus has been opened. Yi and Wu nodded in understanding and stood. Realizing Athena was staring at him, he cocked his head. Yes. Do you have something to say? No, sir. It's fine. Athena hesitated, then shook her head. Although she looked fine, Just as she'd said, Yi and Wu didn't miss her slightly sulking expression. She was clearly upset. It's because I took Hermes as my apostle too. When Yi and Wu healed Hermes, he had taken him as his apostle since gods had all authority over their apostle, including life or death, an apostleship was necessary to heal Hermes. Since this meant that Hermes would have to give up everything he had to someone else, he had initially refused. However, Yi and Wu had pleaded for Hermes to trust him, and Hermes accepted the offer even though he wasn't fully conscious and allowed Yi and Wu to treat him. Moreover, gods could share some of their powers with their apostles, so Yi and Wu bestowed some magic power through their channel so that Hermes could quickly regain his health. Hermes was now stronger than Ares or Hercules in terms of pure holy power. Of course, when Ares and Hercules learned of this, they continually complained about it. They had grumbled about their apostleship before, saying that it confined them as though they were cattle, but it seemed like hierarchy still mattered to them. Athena was probably a bit upset that he hadn't offered her an apostleship as well. Yi and Wu didn't think becoming an apostle was that great, but if Athena felt that way, that was his error in judgment. Yi and Wu could barely contain his laughter, and he pretended not to notice Athena's gaze as he headed for the gate. She's going to drill a hole in my back at this rate with all that staring. Athena glared at Yi and Wu for a while then followed him quietly. Yi and Wu returned to Tartarus with the gods of Olympus in tow. Ah, I never imagined I'd be this glad to see the skies of Tartarus. It must be true that Mother Earth has been defeated. I cannot feel any of that bitch's holy power. But why are there so many transcendents here? That's Chan Sect's Prince Nezha and Erlang Shen. The demonic wolf of Niflheim and L'Infernal's Grand Duke of the East. Just what happened here? Each god of Olympus had a look of disbelief when they sensed the energies in Tartarus. Who wouldn't be surprised to find familiar faces, and renowned ones at that, staring blankly at you? Poseidon looked quite surprised this time. The divine beings among the 5 most powerful beings in their respective societies, and their pride stopped them from acknowledging just any person. Seeing them treat Yi and Wu as an equal underscored the fact that Yi and Wu had brought Mother Earth down. In fact, this probably meant that the divine beings considered Yi and Wu superior to Olympus since they were allied with Yi and Wu. It was rare for an individual to ally with a society, even within the heavenly world. When Poseidon learned that Pluto, dragons, and the giants they'd believed had gone extinct were among Yi and Wu's subordinates, he was speechless. He was lost for words at the shocks that came one after the other. The gods of Olympus began to feel brighter after experiencing reality. Perhaps, he didn't just claim Olympus, but he might have created a new throne of the king of gods. If he can do that with a mortal's body, he might be able to become an emperor once he's a transcendent. Those casually spoken words caused a flurry of discussion among the gods of Olympus. After Cronos' fall, the gods of Olympus had fallen into the path of ruin and suffered the humiliation of losing Olympus to the Titans and Gigantes. Zeus, who should have been ruling them, was still asleep, so he couldn't lead them at all. It didn't seem like a bad idea for Yi and Wu to be the new leader in this kind of situation. Although he was immortal, the beings of the heavenly world acknowledged him, and he was the child of Cronos and Rhea. There was no problem with his pedigree. Eventually, opinions started to sway towards Yi and Wu. Whoosh! The stairs to the heavenly world, the 98th floor, have been unlocked. A massive column of light dropped from the ashy sky to the temple of the king of the underworld, connecting the skies and the earth. The gods of Olympus were excited. The moment they had been waiting for had finally come. The path to their motherland was open. Athena. Yi and Wu silently regarded the heavenly world, then turned to Athena. Athena was looking at the column of light with eyes brimming with tears like the other gods, but she bowed when Yi and Wu called for her. Yes, uncle. Catch. Athena's eyes widened when she caught the object Yi and Wu tossed to her indifferently. It was a sword made of obsidian, the great holy artifact that, like Kine, that represented Hades. Why are you giving this to me? Starting from today, you are Pluto's commander. Since you're also a god of war, you'll be able to use these soldiers more efficiently. They are armed with better weapons than they had under Hades, and they're more disciplined now, so they'll be useful in the heavenly world as well. It was only then that Athena understood Yi and Wu's intent. There were still many Gigantes in Olympus. A great war was needed to purge them all. However, Yi and Wu still couldn't ascend to the 98th floor due to the limitations of the system. He was sending Pluto to the heavenly world in his stead, and he'd given Athena command over them. Athena would be the temporary master of Pluto, which would allow her to move somewhat easily from into the heavenly world. Yi and Wu was taking advantage of the system. Moreover, this would give Athena strength and authority. Even though Yenwu would be the one to sit on Olympus' throne as king of gods, he was showing that Athena would be a supreme god. As she was a war god with the domains of wisdom and civilization, there was no one more suited to uniting the divided Olympus and leading them than her. Player ### offers an apostleship to the unaffiliated god, Athena. Player ### offers Athena the position of chief apostle. Closing square bracket. The chief apostle will be the head of the apostles who lead the followers, and she will closely serve her god by becoming her god's eyes and voice. Will you accept this offer? Will you accept? Athena's eyes widened at the message, then looked determined when Yenwu asked again. Even with her head bowed, her holy power grew as sharp and firm as a spear and a shield, as it used to be. I will obey the words of my god. Death to the enemies, and fight for the allies. With Valdebeach's bellow, all of Yenwu's subordinates stomped and raised their weapons high into the air as they began to cheer. Thump, death to the enemies. Thump, fight for the allies. Before Athena and the others stepped into the column of light, Agaris said with glinting eyes, open hollow corner bracket, you want some help. The Grand Demon Duke of the East licked his lips with his bright red tongue in amusement. Open hollow corner bracket, even though Mother Earth has been defeated and the leaders are dead, reclaiming Olympus won't be that easy. Make a wish for me to help you. Who knows if luck might be on your side? Athena didn't even respond as she frowned and walked past him. The devil's words were sweet, but you had to see the hidden poison, especially when the words came from a divine being who slowly made their contractee go mad and led them on the path to destruction. Athena knew that Agaris tempted people into contracts like this and took their souls in the end. Moreover, Agaris likely didn't want her but desired her channel as chief apostle. We'll be back. Athena bowed to Yenwu and led the gods of Olympus and soldiers of the underworld up to the heavenly world using the column of light. Whoosh. You are attempting to possess the chief apostle. Yenwu closed his eyes and focused on the channel that connected him to Athena. Possession was simply sharing the view of an apostle. It wasn't like a manifestation, which took over the apostle's will. He planned on watching Athena reclaim Olympus and assist when needed. Athena's only thought was to win and offer the victory to Yenwu with her own hands, although Yenwu couldn't tell whether it was because she knew he was watching or because she was elated to be back in her motherland. This is the 98th floor, the gate of the heavenly world. The light faded away, and Yenwu could see countless marble temples below Athena's feet. It was Olympus. Armed gigantes watched them from temples and fortresses, as if they had been anticipating this moment. However, anxiety and fear were apparent on their faces. To them, it probably seemed like hundreds of attackers had suddenly appeared through holes in the sky. You are currently trespassing on the holy territory of the godly society less than Olympus greater than. The gods of less than Olympus greater than have sensed the presence of unidentifiable trespassers. The gods of less than Olympus greater than have activated a defense system to defeat the trespassers. Less than Olympus greater than has requested the help of their allies. Less than Asgard greater than has refused the request for help. A new battle has broken out between the two forces. The battle to recapture Olympus is beginning. Athena instinctively chuckled when she saw the gigantes. She had been defeated by that. It was hard to believe. At the same time, she could feel how powerful the strength Yenwu shared with her was. A mighty magic power spun inside of her body and created holy power. With this, she had not only regained the divinity she'd lost in Erebus, but even grown stronger than before. She moved without any hesitation, and with Aegis in her left hand, she blocked the powers and attacks falling onto her. She focused magic power into the sword in her right hand, and the weapon Yenwu had given to her made a loud ring. Clang! Athena swung it up and down with the power she'd gained from becoming Yenwu's apostle, Sword Thunder. Although she hadn't trained in it yet, the large amount of magic power and holy power that she focused into it made the sword radiate with heat and light as if it would explode any moment. Rumble! A black-red column of light landed in the middle of Olympus, brighter than the column of light they'd used to return. Barriers and protective systems in the air shattered, and other defenses fell apart even before they reached the light. Athena didn't stop there and swung the sword again and again. She activated Sword Thunder indiscriminately in the land of Olympus and scorched the earth. Boom, boom, boom. Open hollow corner bracket Athena, that crazy bitch. Is she planning on destroying the entire holy territory like this? Open hollow corner bracket what are the soldiers doing? Stop them. Open hollow corner bracket those suspicious looking, take care of those suspicious looking bolts first. Open hollow corner bracket stop it. Stop it now. Athena dropped an onslaught of sword thunderbolts to the ground until her magic power and holy power ran out. She behaved as if she didn't care about Olympus being destroyed, because if she tried to preserve the city, it would stretch out the time it would take to take it back. That would only result in more destruction, and the best option was to discourage her enemies with an overwhelming display of power. Fortunately, Athena's strategy worked, and the Gigantes were instantly in chaos. Even though their commanders ordered them to raise their spears and cast magic, the soldiers lost their morale. Fear began to spread among them, and some even abandoned their weapons and attempted to run away. Pluto entered the battle at that moment. No matter how many attacks dropped from the sky, the infantry would decide victory. Furthermore, Pluto was the best of the best. They had fought countless battles and won just as many. None had crossed death's door as many times as they had in the last 100 years. To them, the Gigantes were only children trying to dress up as adults. At this rate, Athena will take all the credit. I won't lose to her. Ha ha ha, I, Ares, will show how I obtained the title of Butcher. Hercules and Ares quickly followed Pluto onto the battlefield. They hunted down the commander-level Gigantes to destroy morale even further. Explosions rang throughout the battlefield. Hermes shook his head as he looked at his excited brothers, and he lightly waved his hands in the air. The ground began to shake, and boa constrictors popped out, snatching up Gigantes one by one. He couldn't let the others take all the credit either. As the apostles performed impressively, Apollo and the other gods who were reluctantly working with Yi and Wu jumped onto the battlefield with their spirits running high. We can't lose to them. Let's take Olympus from these creatures. Only Poseidon looked down from above with an expression that was hard to read. Why you can't come in here, AACK? The very first place Athena and the others attempted to take was the center of Olympus, Omphalos. It had originally been Zeus' holy territory, but the Gigantes were now using it as their base camp. They had to reclaim this place first before Yi and Wu could designate Olympus as his holy territory. Less than Olympus greater than desperately requests help from their allies. Less than Olympus greater than desperately requests help from their allies. Less than Asgard greater than ignores the request for help. Less than Asgard greater than has declared a dissolution of their alliance with less than Olympus greater than. The alliance between less than Olympus greater than and less than Asgard greater than has ended. Less than Olympus greater than requests the assistance of other godly societies. The neutral force less than Diva greater than stays silent. The neutral force less than Gia sect greater than stays silent. The godly society less than Malik greater than gives their statement. We support all activities of player ### and also positively accept the new system he has established in Olympus. However, we express concern about the restoration of the throne of the King of Gods, which has a history of causing chaos in the heavenly world, and we request a closer look. The demonic society less than L'Infernal greater than expresses their support of less than Olympus greater than giving up its holy territory and becoming a government in exile. Less than Olympus greater than searches for mercenaries. Vimalacitra positively reviews the commission. However, his condition is that less than Olympus greater than must become his subordinate. Less than Olympus greater than refuses and the commission has been cancelled. Cernunnos rejects the message of commission. Less than Olympus greater than has fallen into despair. Fear fills the holy territory of less than Olympus greater than. The allies of less than Olympus greater than have split apart. Athena and the others mercilessly defeated the Gigantes. Open hollow corner bracket Asgard, those damned assholes. Asgard had behaved as if they would give everything they had to support Olympus, but now they turned their backs on the Gigantes, leaving them feeling betrayed. When the other societies looked away, the Gigantes grew despairing, and when Malik no longer treated them as a society and L'Infernal showed the intent to swallow them, they lost the strength to feel angry and only felt powerless and frustrated. The societies of the heavenly world had to be strong in order to be acknowledged and maintain their system. Besides, many already looked askance at the Gigantes for having the support of Mother Earth. Most beings thought that things had worked out for the better. Of course, Yi and Wu had become enemies with many societies in the battle with the crawling chaos, but no one helped the Gigantes because they didn't see anything in it for them. In the end, the Gigantes were destroyed without having a chance to put up much of a fight, and Athena received messages that Pluto had taken control of various hubs. Open hollow corner bracket the western, directional tower, has been successfully dominated. Open hollow corner bracket the eastern, fields of Oniroi, has been claimed. No external societies are attempting to invade the holy territory. Open hollow corner bracket the earth of Thanatos, has just been subjugated. Open hollow corner bracket battles are taking place in 13 holy territories. 8 will be conquered within a few hours. Open hollow corner bracket, you've all worked hard. Keep it up until the end. Open hollow corner bracket, yes, ma'am. Open hollow corner bracket, yes, ma'am. The performance of Dis Pluto is outstanding. Fight, streaks through the holy territory of less than Olympus greater than. Death, spreads through the holy territory of less than Olympus greater than. A new, impressive legend is in the process of being written. At the very least, we must protect this place. In the hall of the king, where Zeus and the other brothers once ruled over the universe, Et looked at Athena, the other apostles, and Dis Pluto as they surrounded him. He was ruling the Gigantes in Typhon's and Persephone's absence, and he was trying to protect the throne, but the fear in his eyes was apparent. That damned bastard. Wait, Ares. Why? Ares had once lost to Et, and he turned his head to look at Athena, who was preventing him from reaching Et. Athena gave the sword she was holding to Hercules and stepped forward. Today is a glorious day since the throne of the King of Gods is returning after thousands of years. This is the location where we will hold such an important ceremony. We can't spill blood on a holy day and place like this, can we? That's true. Ares nodded in agreement and stepped back. Athena stepped past him, moving to the throne. Et looked up at Athena with shaking eyes. What are you trying to? What else? Athena smiled coldly as she stretched her hand out. Bugs should be exterminated. She activated Sword Thunder on the tip of her fingers. It tore through the holy power and divine abilities Et set up around himself for protection. Athena gripped his face and crushed it. Crack, she pushed Et's head all the way down to his seat as if it were a can being crushed. There was a sorrowful scream as pieces of flesh and bone burst out. However, not a single drop of blood fell to the ground since Sword Thunder evaporated it. Athena swung her hand to sweep away 2 of the 3 thrones. In the future, only the new King of Gods would sit here, so the other thrones were unnecessary. You have won the battle to recapture Olympus. The owner of the great holy territory less than Omphalos greater than has changed. The godly society less than Olympus greater than greets a new supreme god. Oh ho, so, he's finally taken Olympus as well, Prince Nezha exclaimed in astonishment as the messages in the sky, and Erlang Shen nodded nonchalantly. They had expected this victory ever since Yin Wu became Kronos' successor and defeated Mother Earth, but they were still surprised to see him become a supreme god of Olympus. Olympus divided the throne of the King of Gods into 3 so there wouldn't be another tyrant like Kronos. But will that be inevitable now? Erlang Shen's eyes darkened. Although each of the brothers had wanted to take their share, the pressure of the other societies who didn't want the creation of another Kronos had also been a large part of the decision to split up the throne. Zeus had wanted to take the throne for himself, but since they had to sort out the confusion as quickly as possible, he was forced to share it with his 2 brothers despite his frustration. However, his new brother, Yin Wu, had now unified the throne. What kind of expression would Zeus make when he learned of this? During his slumber, Olympus had been destroyed, and the throne he thought would last forever had been taken from him. However, he couldn't do anything since this was the law of the heavenly world. It was inevitable that your position would disappear if you didn't protect it. There might be a fight with Zeus soon. Erlang Shen liked Yin Wu, and he felt pulled towards him. However, as a leader of the Chan sect, he couldn't react positively to the united Olympus. The power that Olympus had was equal to that of the Chan sect. He was worried about the possible birth of a new Kronos, and he secretly hoped Zeus would wake up to create some internal strife in Olympus. Of course, only after the stone of Casitas comes over to us, as promised. Apparently, Yin Wu had used the stone of Casitas to treat Hermes and other gods poisoned by Erebus curses. Now that it seemed to truly have the potential to treat the heavenly demon disease, Erlang Shen desperately wanted it. But anyhow, Erlang Shen turned inquiringly to Prince Nezha, who had suddenly spoken up. Lei Junzi must be in a tight spot now. Erlang Shen nodded in agreement and smiled wryly. The companion they had left behind in the heavenly world was probably jumping up and down in frustration. Lei Junzi was busy supporting the 2 from the heavenly world, but now he would have to clean up after Asgard. It was probably the same situation that Yin Wu's allies, like Niflheim and the East Demon Army, were facing. Even if Asgard was no longer part of the hostile alliance, the others couldn't allow Asgard off the hook so easily. Right now, Asgard was probably running interference to appease Yin Wu's allies. Of course, the allies were probably planning to take as much as they could from Asgard. The other societies who were watching might try to take some benefits as well. Lei Junzi would have to work his brain quite a bit for these tough negotiations. He's been complaining about hair loss recently, and his head will probably be shiny and bald by the time we get back. Haha. Prince Nezha burst in laughter as he thought of Lei Junzi, who was probably glaring at them right now. A corner of his lips rose as he said, "Anyway, since we helped them reclaim Tartarus and restore Olympus as promised, the time to request our share has come." Indeed. What do you think? Any chances of victory with .. Aren't you wiser than I am when it comes to war? That's true. Still, the enemies we'll be facing from now on won't be easy. Erlang Shen nodded heavily. The matters of the Chan sect had to do with their long-standing enemies, the Jia sect, and Pandemonium. Pandemonium was too small to be called a society, but their manpower couldn't be underestimated. The 7 demon kings who ruled over Pandemonium included the Great Sage, who was another face of the heavenly demon, so there was no need to even describe their strength. Their oldest, the Bull Demon King, was so strong that even Kronos hadn't had the confidence to fight him in the past. He had awakened from a piece of the beginning, and despite that, he was still quite active, which put a lot of pressure on the Chan sect. It was hard to tell whether Yi and Wu could handle him. Just from the way he took Olympus, it's no exaggeration to say .. is a monster, but the heavenly world is swarming with monsters greater than him. In the Chan sect alone, there was Sanwang Wudi, the West Empress Dowager, and other beings who called themselves elders, and had no interest in the tower. There was also the Trinity Wonder, who had set up the tower. There were already a handful of beings who were on the same level as Yi and Wu, or possibly even stronger. And of course, there was Alpharon, who was like a wall blocking the heavenly world. Erlang Shen hoped Yi and Wu would be able to stand against the Bull Demon King. After Athena restored the throne, she left it empty. Since Yi and Wu couldn't ascend to the heavenly world, she prevented anyone from approaching it. However, she took care of internal affairs in Yi and Wu's stead and immediately got to work. She moved forward with the punishment of the traitors who assisted the Titans and Gigantes while giving orders for the collapsed holy territories to be restored. She also went to the underground prison of Omphalos herself. It was where the elders of Olympus had been locked up for treason after they resisted the Titans and Gigantes. If the elders had used their full strength, Olympus wouldn't have fallen so easily to the Titans and Gigantes, but because Mother Earth was on their side, the elders were able to use their powers as well as they wanted to. This was because most of them were Mother Earth's children. There was also the fact that most of them had already forgotten how to use their powers because they were conceptual beings. Creak. Athena opened the iron door and was greeted by a massive hall. However, she didn't see any traces of the elders, even though she'd been told that they were inside. There wasn't a single humanoid figure in the hall. Instead, there were many rays of light of different shapes and sizes. Instantly, various voices whispered in her ear. Open hollow corner bracket you are. Open hollow corner bracket who is this child again? She looks familiar. Open hollow corner bracket idiot. Have you already forgotten? She's Zeus' eldest daughter. Open hollow corner bracket oh right close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket I forgot because of my long slumber. Open hollow corner bracket why is Zeus' eldest daughter here? Open hollow corner bracket what about the Titans and Gigantes? Open hollow corner bracket Athena. Open hollow corner bracket why are you here? The voices were so disorganized that it was hard to tell how many there were, as if numerous mosquitoes were buzzing in her ear. Some voices were pure chaos and couldn't finish their sentences. However, unlike the crawling chaos in Mother Earth, most of the voices were controlled, so they were intelligible. These were the elders. Since they had existed even before Olympus had been created, they eventually forgot their own existence over time and only the barest of their consciousness remained. Thanatos, Kur, Momus, Potnia and the real Nemesis and Nike. Athena quietly paid her respects to them. A daughter of Zeus, Athena, greets the elders. Open hollow corner bracket that's enough with the pleasantries. Open hollow corner bracket outside close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket tell her stories of the outside. Open hollow corner bracket the fact that you're here must mean something has happened again. They had been awakened from their deep sleep to become the laws of the universe and had been forced here by the Titans and Gigantes. The only thing they wanted was to leave this place as soon as possible. Athena told all the elders they were all free now and explained the reclaiming of Olympus in simple terms. The elders hadn't shown much emotion when they had been locked away, but they seemed to brighten at the news. Open hollow corner bracket that's truly a relief. Open hollow corner bracket now I'll be able to sleep peacefully again. This world is too small. Open hollow corner bracket Kronos' son was born in that faraway place and returned here. Open hollow corner bracket Is this what the Moirai mentioned? Close hollow corner bracket. The Moirai were the three goddesses who looked over fate. They were similar to the three Norns on the 16th floor, and they were known in the heavenly world as well. Had they prophesied something about Yi and Wu? Before Athena could ask, someone spoke up. Open hollow corner bracket Athena. Open hollow corner bracket You must have come here yourself to wake Zeus, right? Yes, that's correct. Athena bowed politely. Although the Titans and Gigantes had taken over Olympus, they hadn't been able to eliminate Zeus because they couldn't find him. His rooms were hidden so carefully that they had believed he wasn't even in the heavenly world. But Athena knew better. Zeus' rooms were right beneath their noses, below the elders' prison. The only reason the Titans and Gigantes hadn't been able to find it was that it couldn't be opened without the permission of the elders. Now that they had reclaimed Olympus, Athena wanted to see Zeus. She needed to tell him the truth. It would be a bolt from the blue for him, but she considered it a duty she had to do as his eldest daughter and Yi and Wu's chief apostle. Open hollow corner bracket Zeus, that poor thing. Open hollow corner bracket The heavenly demon was the problem. Close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket Yes. We'll open the path, go on in. Thank you. Athena bowed to the elders and began to walk towards a stone door. Yi and Wu had healed the poison of Erebus, which had seemed untreatable at first. Athena thought that he might also be able to cure the heavenly demon disease, and she wanted to see Zeus and confirm his symptoms up close. However, when she stepped into Zeus' bedroom for the first time in thousands of years, Athena stopped and gasped. The bed where Zeus was supposed to be sleeping in was empty. As if there had been no one there in the first place. What? Yi and Wu's eyes widened at the message he received from Athena. Zeus had disappeared. Open hollow corner bracket I apologize. I don't know what happened. The elders don't have any idea either. I'll look into the situation and contact you with more details soon. Athena's voice was trembling, which was understandable since her father had suddenly gone missing. He might have tried to escape from the Titans and Gigantes, so they needed to find him as soon as possible. Nothing good would happen if the other societies caught wind of this. Yi and Wu ordered Athena to carry out a close examination and, after he closed the channel, he turned to see Kronos, who had a stiff expression on his face. Open hollow corner bracket This fool, where would he close hollow corner bracket Kronos felt guilt toward Zeus, so he seemed very anxious at the news of his disappearance. Yi and Wu couldn't do anything other than say it would be all right. However, later that evening, Yi and Wu learned that Zeus wasn't the only one who had disappeared. The Yellow Emperor from Chan sect, Odin from Asgard, and from Dilmun, and the other creator gods from each society had all disappeared without a trace. They were all divine beings who suffered from the heavenly demon disease. It began when news of Zeus' disappearance arrived from Olympus. At first, they were going to keep it a secret from the rest of Yi and Wu's allies because nothing good would come from others knowing this information. But if the other societies accidentally found Zeus first, the consequences would be too great. When Hermes said it would probably be better to ask the other societies for help, they decided to tell Niflheim, the Chan sect, and the East Demon Army. These societies were some of the largest in the heavenly world, and Olympus hoped that their networks would help them find Zeus soon. Of course, it meant they would be in debt to the other societies, but it was better than losing Zeus to the other societies at some unforeseen time. However, when they shared news of Zeus' disappearance to the rest of the allies' reactions were completely unexpected. The Chan sect seemed to be the most perturbed. Just a moment, Erlang Shen's expression stiffened as he left the conference room. He soon returned with shocking news. I received similar news from Three God Mountains. The Emperor is missing. Both Zeus and the Jade Emperor were gone. Something disturbing was going on. Anxiety spread through all of them. The godly society less than Malik greater than searches through their database to confirm the Allied forces' request. The first thing the Allied forces did was to ask Malik for help. Although some would say that it was dangerous to expose your vulnerability, Malik and L'Infernal were unique societies within the heavenly world. Malik represented absolute good, which meant that they were considered an inflexible society that didn't know how to negotiate or be flexible. However, this also meant Malik would never betray others or break their promises. Although they didn't ally themselves with other societies and always walked alone, they did anything they could to maintain order among the other societies. As a result, the heavenly world always depended on them to arbitrate or run interference. Moreover, because Malik's motto was peace, stability, and love, they were willing to step up in situations like this. Malik was clearly aware of the severity of the situation because they quickly began an investigation. However, considering how delicate the matter was, it took time to search for information. The Godly Society less than Malik greater than has confirmed that similar incidents have occurred. The affected societies include less than Dilmun greater than, less than Memphis greater than, and less than Bo greater than. Other similar incidents are being revealed. The Godly Society less than Malik greater than has uncovered a grave problem and determined that a more in-depth investigation will be necessary. An official request for assistance has been sent to other societies. The result was shocking. The Godly Society less than Malik greater than secretly wishes to contact your allies. Will you accept? You have accepted. Michael, an envoy of less than Malik greater than, is descending. Everyone was surprised that an envoy would descend. Michael himself. What has happened? They're probably mad because of what happened with Gabriel. I hope there isn't any tension or a fight. Woof. Open hollow corner bracket puppy, you're right. Things are indeed playing out in an amusing manner. Agaris and Fenrir laughed as they talked. Michael was an archangel, a position that was second only to that of the celestial scribe, Metatron, and Michael was extremely influential, with many loyal supporters in Malik. In fact, based on his physical strength alone, it was possible that his status was higher than that of Metatron. He rarely left Malik because he was an extremist who detested evil and sin, and yet he was coming as an envoy. Those who knew Michael's character expressed concern. Michael only acknowledged the god he served, and he lived by the personal motto, the only good demons are dead ones. It was obvious what such a being would do down here, especially considering his hate for Yi and Wu, who used Gabriel to make the fruit of good and evil. Boom. When a blinding white lightning bolt landed on the ground, a beautiful man with bright red lips and multiple pairs of wings appeared. The less than Chan sect greater than of the Allied forces fixed their eyes on Tartarus. Less than Niflheim greater than of the Allied forces fixed their eyes on Tartarus. The less than East Demon Army greater than of the Allied forces fixed their eyes on Tartarus. The Demonic Society less than L'Infernal greater than carefully observes the actions of the Godly Society less than Malik greater than. Baal fixes his eyes on Tartarus. The Allied forces and L'Infernal paid close attention to Tartarus to observe every single movement that the famous Michael did. Open hollow corner bracket I didn't know so many beings would be interested in my actions. The beautiful man who was so fair that he seemed to glow smiled coldly and looked up at the sky. Because he spoke in his true voice and not his physical voice like Agaris did, his words were imbued with strong holy power that shook Tartarus. Open hollow corner bracket then close hollow corner bracket Michael spread his arms apart like a singer acknowledging a request for an encore and shouted, open hollow corner bracket I must live up to the expectations, no. He suddenly disappeared. Flash. Hash hash hash. You, Ares and Hercules, who were standing by Yi and Wu's side, instinctively stepped forward. It was obvious where Michael was headed. Clang, clang, Ares, blade and Hercules, axe crossed in the air. Michael stood in front of them with a cold smile, pushing a blazing spear against the two weapons. Open hollow corner bracket oh ho. I did hear Zeus' two bravest sons are now apostles, but it's another matter to see it for myself. Michael grinned, his expression contrasting against Ares and Hercules, stiff expressions. Open hollow corner bracket but you're too cocky. Michael moved forward and began to raise his spear, pushing back the combined strength of two of the most powerful warriors in Olympus with his brute strength. Hercules, who was confident he was second to none when it came to pure strength, was especially shocked. With a cold smile, Michael thrust Ares and Hercules away. Spark. The tip of the spear swung up with a ringing sound as sparks flew. Michael rapidly spun the spear. Boom. The spear's fiery attack exploded out as though it were a cannon, and Ares and Hercules didn't have a single chance to counterattack. With each swing of the spear, it was as though thunder boomed right beside them. Ares and Hercules managed to fend off the attacks, but the impact still sent them flying back, leaving a trail of blood. Their hair grew disheveled, like lions' manes, and their clothes ripped. The difference in strength was overwhelming. Michael tossed the two pests away and immediately opened a space behind Yi and Wu to sweep his legs. Rumble. However, a large, black-red bolt hurtled down from the sky and flicked away Michael's spear attack. Yi and Wu quickly brandished Vigrid, slicing the black-red bolt as the blade approached Michael's neck. Clang. However, before Vigrid reached its target, the spear popped up to block it. Yi and Wu's eyes widened at the strength he could feel pushing against Vigrid. Had Michael always been this strong? Yi and Wu realized that Malik might be more powerful than he'd believed. A new emotion began to bloom in his heart, competitiveness. The desire to fight with Michael awakened inside him. The enemies Yi and Wu had been dealing with weren't really rivals but archenemies he had to defeat. It hadn't been about gaining victory but the necessity of killing his enemies. For the first time in a long while, his instincts as a martial artist flared up. Yi and Wu quickly began an onslaught of attacks to see the power of Malik, whom he'd never challenged before. 8 extremes of sword thunder activated one after the other. Rumble, rumble, rumble. With each swing, Vigrid blazed with black-red bolts and fire that threatened to swallow Michael. Most divine beings would have tried to evade these attacks, but Michael easily deflected them and even made the occasional counterattack. The gods and demons watching the fight ended up being the ones injured by the attacks, and they were forced to move back as the area around them was ruined. When sword thunder reached the 5th extreme, Michael's spear pierced through the fire to reach Yi and Wu's throat. Yi and Wu swung Vigrid down to deflect it and the two began another battle of strength. Vigrid and the spear clashed, each trying to break the other. It was a fierce standoff, and neither party held back. Do I need to combine before fighting? Yi and Wu briefly considered combining with Kronos. Since he started this fight, he wanted to take it to the end. However, the only thing that prevented him from doing so was the fact that Michael probably had some secret weapon. Ding! At that moment, Yi and Wu's heart began to beat wildly. The philosopher's stone was throbbing. His eyes narrowed. Open hollow corner bracket. I heard you have the most pieces of my foolish older brother. I can see why. Michael stopped fighting after sensing something and grinned as he looked at Yi and Wu's chest. Yi and Wu's eyebrows furrowed. Older brother. Open hollow corner bracket. Oh, you must not know because you're immortal. Michael looked into Yi and Wu's eyes and smiled toothily. Open hollow corner bracket. Lucille. My twin left behind the thing you have next to your heart. Close hollow corner bracket. Yi and Wu hadn't been expecting that information at all. The Lightkeeper who had once put fear into the entire heavenly world, Lucille, Lucifer, was Michael's twin brother. Despite his shock, Yi and Wu managed to understand why Michael was so strong even though he didn't have a special divinity like a conceptual god or a creator god. Open hollow corner bracket. I think that's enough, you unwelcome visitor. Just then, an arrow condensed with demonic energy fell in between Yi and Wu and Michael. It had a life-threatening, destructive strength, and Yi and Wu and Michael pushed each other away to escape it. Standing in the spot they had just vacated was Agaras, who had manifested in his true body. Hundreds of pairs of black wings fluttered beautifully in the air. Open hollow corner bracket. I've always said that it is mine. Only I can taste it. With a cold smile, Agaras licked his hand, which was filled with black demonic energy. His eyes were sharp, as if he could hack Michael apart just by looking at him. Open hollow corner bracket. Stop being so annoyed. Michael was about to tell Agaras to go away when he realized that Erlang Shen and Fenrir had joined Agaras to surround him. Yi and Wu's subordinates also appeared and glowered at him. In the sky, Bu Fost's wide eyes were blazing, as if he wanted to rip Michael to shreds. All the allied forces carefully observe Michael. The godly society less than Malik greater than advises Michael to stop. Even Michael wouldn't be able to deal with all these beings at once. Open hollow corner bracket. How boring. You beings have nipped the first fun I've had in a while. Michael snorted in dissatisfaction and stuck his spear into the ground. The blazing fire was extinguished. Then, as if nothing had happened, he rubbed his hands together with a brazen smile. Open hollow corner bracket. Shall we talk now? The gods and demons all looked at Michael with flabbergasted expressions. How could he manage to be so shameless and pretend that nothing had happened? Was he simply confident in his skills, or did he consider Malik to be that superior? It was hard to know what made him so self-assured, but the gods and demons couldn't start an argument with him. Michael's personality was famous, or rather, infamous, within the heavenly world. Arguing with him would only bring on a headache. However, there was one thing they overlooked. Michael's reckless personality was well known within the heavenly world, but there was someone worse than him. As soon as Michael and the other divine beings turned around, a powerful, thundering boom rattled the sky. Rumble. Michael quickly shifted to the side, but a bolt of sword thunder had already slashed through his right wing. The severed wing fell to the ground, but the light that flashed after the attack made it disappear. Michael was forced to retreat far away with a stiff expression. SSS's. Yi and Wu planted the steaming Vigrid into the ground and smiled coldly. Did you think I would gloss over things if you said we should talk? You must think I'm a pushover. The eyes of the other gods and demons widened in surprise before they shook their heads. They were now familiar with Yi and Wu's temperament after spending so much time with him. The apostles finally seemed satisfied. Alur and Fenrir burst into laughter. Open hollow corner bracket yes. If I have to choose a creature who is madder than I am, it would be you. Of course. No doubt about it. Ha ha ha. Woof, woof, woof. Alur and Fenrir's loud chatter annoyed Michael, but he suppressed his irritation and quietly glared at Yi and Wu. Then, he smiled in amusement and wet his lips with his cherry-red tongue. Open hollow corner bracket can I consider your action as a gesture of disrespect to Malik? You mean Malik is disrespecting me? Open hollow corner bracket If you had wanted to speak on equal footing, then Metatron should have come down himself. However, the fact that a mere envoy would even dare pick a fight like this, how else should I react? Should I take it as Malik disrespecting Olympus, the giants, the dragons, and my allies? Michael finally understood what Yi and Wu was saying. Yi and Wu wasn't just anyone. He was Kronos' rightful son and a supreme god of Olympus who now sat on the new throne of the king of gods. He was a king whose subordinates were the forgotten giants, the new master of the dragons, the successor of the Black King, and a god of death and fight. It was an endless list of descriptions and titles. There weren't many in the heavenly world who could compare to him. Although Yi and Wu hadn't transcended or exuviated yet, he could try it anytime he wished, so that wasn't a problem. In fact, as Yi and Wu implied, his status and influence in the heavenly world weren't insignificant. Michael's rude behavior as an envoy mocked not only Yi and Wu but the allies who acknowledged him and worked with him. If all of his allies decided to find fault with Malik due to this, Malik would have no excuse. Although Malik possessed clues about Zeus' whereabouts, if Yi and Wu decided he would just get rid of Zeus' position and forget about him, there was nothing Malik could do. Is this what Malik intends? Yi and Wu didn't let go of the topic, and Michael was silent for a moment before he came forward and bowed. Open hollow corner bracket I apologize. I must have been blinded by the thrill of seeing such a strong person for the first time after leaving my society. However, this is all my fault and has nothing to do with Malik. Yi and Wu's eyes flashed. Michael's confident attitude changed in an instant, and it was a rare sight for such a prideful being to bow to someone else. It meant Michael knew when to act and when to retreat. Open hollow corner bracket I hope your majesty is generous enough to forgive me. However, if this apology is not enough, close hollow corner bracket Michael's eyes darkened. Open hollow corner bracket please allow me to pay for my sins with this. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly ripped off his left arm. Spurt. It was over before anyone could stop him. The gods and demons all looked taken aback. Even if an arm could be regenerated with holy power, it would mean losing that holy power. Furthermore, it would take a significant amount of time to regrow an arm, and it was a serious injury, even for a divine being. However, Michael didn't even blink an eye. Yi and Wu couldn't say anything further now that Malik had gone to this extent to make amends. Metatron of the godly society less than Malik greater than implores you to forgive the insolence of his envoy. Yi and Wu clucked his tongue when Metatron apologized and turned around. Open hollow corner bracket he attacked on his own and tore off his arm on his own. Based on how he does things, he must be crazy, for sure. The rest of Yi and Wu's companions smiled at Agar's response and nodded in agreement. Open hollow corner bracket what a guy. Kronos laughed in disbelief as he watched Michael silently receiving treatment from Erlang Shen. He had an opportunity to test my abilities and observe the relationships among our allied forces, so it wasn't all for nothing. Open hollow corner bracket true. Kronos agreed with Yi and Wu. Even though Michael seemed like a competitive and violent being, Kronos could see that, in reality, Michael was as cool-headed as he was strong. Open hollow corner bracket that celestial scribe guy probably had something to do with it too. Each person who has inherited the position of Malik's scribe has always been famous for his slyness. In my prime, there were many times when I wanted to open that guy's head and see what was inside it. Of course, just because Metatron's orders were involved, it didn't mean Michael was simply a puppet. The fact that he could execute these orders and even sacrifice an arm made it plain that he was as sly as Metatron. Open hollow corner bracket if he's got both brains and brawn, that makes him quite the adversary. Son, you're going to go through a bit of trouble to become the king of gods. To gain the throne of the king of gods, one had to be qualified. It meant not only ruling Olympus but also gaining the respect and admiration of other societies. It went without saying that it wasn't an easy task, considering the pride of the divine beings. Open hollow corner bracket anyway, be careful. Guys like that aren't easy to deal with. Yi and Wu nodded. Open hollow corner bracket. More importantly, what are you going to do about that hideous thing in your hand? It's weird carrying it around. Are you going to give it back? Why would I give it back? Yi and Wu smirked as he looked down at Michael's left arm in his hand. The power, Hades, spirit-eating sword, has been activated. He devoured Michael's left arm through the teeth in his left palm. The arm of Malik's strongest being made the holy power inside him multiply. Every little bit helps. Open hollow corner bracket. Tisk. How can a guy like you be my son? Arg, poor bastard. I've got to reap something from what I've sown. Open hollow corner bracket. You smartass. Yi and Wu and Kronos bickered as they entered the temple of the king of the underworld. Open hollow corner bracket. Thank you for waiting. Michael appeared with a bandaged left shoulder. Since he had sworn to show respect to Yi and Wu, he was now speaking formally, and it was impossible to find anything wrong with his behavior. Open hollow corner bracket. I shall skip the trivial matters and get to the point. Michael spoke impassively, his expression solemn. His tone was cold, as if he didn't feel any emotions. Yi and Wu thought this was probably Michael's true personality, and his previous attitude had only been an act. Open hollow corner bracket. 47 other organizations have gone through the same thing that Olympus and the Chan sect have gone. And of course close hollow corner bracket. Michael's eyes darkened. Open hollow corner bracket. All the missing are suffering from heavenly demon disease. As expected. Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha stiffened, and Yi and Wu's apostles seemed to be deep in thought. On the other hand, Agariz and Fenrir seemed amused. Even though they were all allies, there was still a gaping difference between gods and demons. 47 wasn't a small number. It meant that half of the godly societies, particularly the famous ones, had been affected. Will you tell us which organizations have been affected? Erlang Shen asked with a composed expression, but Michael shook his head. Open hollow corner bracket. I cannot tell you exactly who have been affected or who has disappeared. No one wishes to reveal their vulnerabilities. Of course, information about those present will not be leaked either. Is it just the godly societies that have been affected? Open hollow corner bracket. That is also something I cannot confirm. Michael shook his head again, but everyone already knew the answer to this question. If the demonic societies had been affected as well, L'Infernal's Ball and Niflheim's Loki would have disappeared already. Open hollow corner bracket. However, everyone waited. Open hollow corner bracket. After our investigations, we discovered traces of those afflicted by heavenly demon disease being transported to the same place at the same time. Is that true? Where? Open hollow corner bracket. We aren't completely certain, but the coordinates seem to point to the Chang'an Library. Everyone's eyes widened. The Chang'an Library was where all knowledge and events of the universe were recorded. All gods, demons, dragons, and giants wanted to enter, but the honor was only given to a few. However, all the gods suffering from heavenly demon disease had gone to such a mysterious location. Furthermore, everyone here knew who was at the library, which was why they all turned to look at Yi and Wu at the same time, even Michael. Open hollow corner bracket. Out of all the beings of the lower world, the heavenly world, and even outside the tower, the only person who has recently visited the Chang'an Library was you, King of Olympus. Yi and Wu's eyes darkened. Open hollow corner bracket. The celestial scribe ordered me to ask you directly if there is anything you suspect. Yi and Wu finally understood why Malik had sent Michael as an envoy. They could have sent a report through a message or even sent a messenger to explain. However, the fact that they had sent Michael and paid the price of the laws of causality meant Malik was keeping a close eye on this incident since it was related to the heavenly demon. Open hollow corner bracket. Everyone suffering from heavenly demon disease possessed high divinities with the power of creation. They had also been seriously injured by the heavenly demon. Since all of them are involved, the celestial scribe is worried that the heavenly demon is trying to influence the heavenly world once more. They were asking Yi and Wu to reveal anything he knew. Agariz and Fenrir had realized that the situation wasn't entertaining anymore because their expressions had turned stiff as well. As he looked at others, Yi and Wu gave a short answer, no, nothing. Open hollow corner bracket. However, I can say with confidence that the heavenly demon isn't trying to influence the heavenly world. Michael's eyes darkened. Open hollow corner bracket. May I ask why you think that? Metatron awaits player ###'s response. There's not much to it. If the heavenly demon wanted to do that, he wouldn't have to resort to schemes. Yi and Wu grinned. He can destroy the heavenly world with just a single wave of his hand. Everyone stiffened. Metatron presses his lips together at player ###'s response. I'm sure nobody will deny the fact that the only reason why gods and demons are still in the heavenly world is that the heavenly demon went easy on you. A heavy silence settled over everyone. From what Yi and Wu remembered, the heavenly demon was all-powerful. He was someone who trapped all the gods and demons in the tower and even locked the Black King up in emptiness. Why would such a being have to scheme? It was very improbable. Why would he go through all the trouble? If the heavenly demon were really scheming something, there was only one reason for it: boredom. It was possible he had grown bored from being locked up in the Chenggong library all this time and decided to toy with the heavenly world. But the heavenly demon wasn't a child. Would he really do that? The probability was very likely. Yi and Wu grimaced as he thought of the heavenly demon. The heavenly demon that Yi and Wu had met in the Chenggong library was so free-spirited that it was hard to believe he had bound himself by the laws of nature on his own accord. The heavenly demon was the type to ask questions later, and he did things without thinking of the consequences, as long as he thought it would be fun. He was like a curious monkey. In fact, he was the leader of the monkeys. His aura was stronger than the one Yi and Wu had sensed from the Monkey King's exuvie. Now that Yi and Wu thought about it, the heavenly demon was indeed someone who would play with the heavenly world because he had nothing else to do, so he couldn't guarantee that the heavenly demon wasn't behind this. Open hollow corner bracket. It's possible with him. Yup, definitely. He might have thought it was funnier because of the aftereffects of the heavenly demon disease or whatever it is. Kronos nodded in agreement, thinking of the heavenly demon he had once seen from far away during his youth. Open hollow corner bracket. But he's from Earth. How is that possible? From my memory, he has always existed for ages. Has he completely surpassed all time and space? As Yi and Wu silently listened to Kronos' questions, the divine beings who were waiting for him to respond glanced at each other anxiously. Open hollow corner bracket. Are you saying this incident is not related to the heavenly demon at all? Yi and Wu snapped to his senses at Michael's question and nodded. He had considered the possibility that the heavenly demon might be the culprit, but he eventually changed his mind. He didn't think the heavenly demon would be that foolish or short-sighted. The heavenly demon has already been merciful by trapping the gods and demons on the 98th floor. Isn't that correct? The gods and demons couldn't reply. Their pride would be hurt regardless of the answer they gave. Open hollow corner bracket. Then why do you think the creator gods headed for the Chenggong library? That's open hollow corner bracket. That is. Was there something Yi and Wu knew? Michael's eyes widened, and the other gods and demons focused on Yi and Wu as well. Metatron hurries player ###'s answer. Something I wouldn't know. Metatron is silent. Michael furrowed his brows. Open hollow corner bracket. I shall await the day we meet again. In the end, Michael's visit ended without any gains. Open hollow corner bracket. But it won't be too long since you have part of my twin. Just as when he had arrived, Michael got on Yi and Wu's nerves when he left. We realize business isn't finished, but we must return as well. Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha also stepped out of the temple with constrained expressions. Now that their leader, the Jade Emperor, was gone, they couldn't stay here. It's a shame I can't see how far you go with my own eyes. Prince Nezha seemed genuinely crestfallen. He had become a true supporter after seeing Yi and Wu's radical acts. We still have the alliance. And I still need the soulstone as well. Yi and Wu didn't plan on cutting off ties with the Chan sect, so he left room for further relations in the future. Erlang Shen and Prince Nezha nodded in satisfaction. Their business with the 7 demon kings wasn't over yet. After finding the Jade Emperor, they could resume anytime. They followed behind Michael, quickly returning to the heavenly world. ###. You guys should leave too. After receiving Yi and Wu's permission, Ares and Hercules brightened and bowed in gratitude. Even though Yi and Wu was their king, Zeus was still their father, so they couldn't ignore his disappearance. Hermes also bowed in gratitude and ascended with all the soldiers of Olympus to the heavenly world, leaving only the minimum number of forces to protect Tartarus. A society without a supreme god. That will be quite interesting too. It could be dangerous, like with Mother Earth, but Yi and Wu wasn't too concerned. The relationships of the allied forces were solid, and with the disappearances of the creator gods, no one would try to go after Olympus. Even if someone tried to attack Olympus, Yi and Wu could always just manifest using Athena's body and defend it. Open hollow corner bracket. But they're leaving with their apostleships intact. Kronos muttered as he watched Ares and Hercules disappear through the column of light. Yi and Wu smirked quietly. He pretended he didn't hear, and Ares and Hercules did the same. Now Tartarus has been dealt with. Yi and Wu glanced through the suddenly empty temple in Tartarus. It had been busy just a few hours ago, but now it was deathly silent, as if the noise and people had only been a dream. This was probably what Tartarus was usually like. It was a quiet world of death where time seemed to have stopped. In fact, it was like death itself. Although he now ruled over death, this stopped world didn't suit him. Agarus thumps his chest for attention now that the interrupters have gone, saying he will stay here with you. Fenrir wags his tail, wanting you to pet him. Of course, Yi and Wu could still see Agarus and Fenrir back in their child and puppy forms waving to him in the distance, but he just ignored them. Is it just me now? His thoughts headed in another direction. He had entered the tower for only one reason, but he had many goals. He had crossed them off one by one, and now, there were only two left. One of them, finding Jung Woo's soul, would take a while because he had to examine the secret of darkness a little further and look into the sea of time, but the other goal was different. Eliminating Alpharon. Yi and Wu's eyes narrowed. Whenever he attempted something, whether it was exuviating or saving his brother's vestige body, Alpharon always got in his way. In the past, Alpharon had even blocked his father's path. If Alpharon hadn't stopped Kronos, or if he had just listened to Kronos and allowed him to return with Jung Woo, none of the events that happened would have transpired in the first place. It might be a decent thing to live up to your convictions, but forcing them on others wasn't acceptable, especially in a closed place like this tower. Yi and Wu needed to find a way to defeat Alpharon. Once he brought down the being that divided the heavenly world from the lower world, he would have to make a path to the higher floors. Open hollow corner bracket. You've made your decision. Vigrid's sword form scattered and Kronos appeared. Yi and Wu nodded heavily. It's time to get Alpharon. Open hollow corner bracket. Makes sense, since your strength and power are considerable now. Kronos nodded in satisfaction. Since he had also suffered from Alpharon, he was enthusiastic to pay everything back. However, I have one concern. Open hollow corner bracket. What is it? Killing Alpharon is one thing, but I don't know how the heavenly demon will react. Open hollow corner bracket. The heavenly demon? Why? Because Alpharon is the heavenly demon's son. Open hollow corner bracket. What? Kronos' eyes widened. It was his first time to hear anything about the heavenly demon having children. However, Yi and Wu still remembered the words the heavenly demon said to him when they were bidding farewell to each other. Oh, right, if you see my son again, tell him I'm sorry. At the time, Yi and Wu hadn't been sure who the heavenly demon's son was, but now he was certain. After seeing Kronos' memories, he realized that the energy he felt from the heavenly demon was similar to that of Alpharon. Alpharon only had powers related to light. Since the heavenly demon was the being who symbolized light, it couldn't be a coincidence. Moreover, the heavenly demon's dejected expression when forcing Alpharon from the Chenggong library and Alpharon's fury reminded Yi and Wu of how he and Kronos used to be with each other. Yi and Wu calmly explained his theory to Kronos, and Kronos clucked his tongue after laughing in disbelief. Open hollow corner bracket. If you felt that way, it must be true. The higher your position, the more sensitive you become. I'm sure your instincts are right. Kronos' eyes narrowed. Open hollow corner bracket. The heavenly demon's son. Then I suppose we must consider the heavenly demon's reaction as well. It meant if Yi and Wu and Alpharon clashed, Yi and Wu might have to stop at capturing him alive. But would it even be possible to capture a being like Alpharon alive? The difference between assassinating someone or kidnapping them was too vast. Open hollow corner bracket. Well, whatever the case, it won't be late to be worried about the heavenly demon after winning. Right. Yi and Wu nodded. As Kronos said, they wouldn't be able to solve this, no matter how much they thought it over. Kronos turned to Yi and Wu and glared at him. Open hollow corner bracket. More importantly, when are you going to introduce me to your comrades? We've been fighting together all this time, but they have never greeted me, you impudent bastard. Yi and Wu scratched his cheek with his thumb. When he thought about it, it was true he had disrespected his father. But he felt awkward and shy about introducing his familiars to Kronos like this. Above all, it'll be a pain if that guy. Before Yi and Wu could finish his thoughts, his shadow abruptly opened next to him and Shannon popped out. Swish. Shit. Yi and Wu instinctively covered his face, full of foreboding. As if he were intent on proving Yi and Wu right, Shannon prostrated himself on the floor with his head down. Open corner bracket. Death Lord Shannon is paying my damn respects to Grandmaster. Open hollow corner bracket. Haha. That's what happened. Kronos' laughter could be heard all the way to where Yi and Wu was. Considering how despondent Kronos had been not to reunite with Poseidon and his other children because of their fight with the demonism and Mother Earth, it should have been nice to see him laughing so cheerily, but why was Yi and Wu feeling so annoyed? Open hollow corner bracket, and he stabbed him in the back, just like that. That poor gluttony emperor thought he was helping a cherished subordinate all along without knowing he'd be backstabbed and killed. Open hollow corner bracket, yeah. But he deserved it. Open hollow corner bracket, him. Since Nike is saying that, he must have been a really bad guy. Open hollow corner bracket, yeah. Even Krung knows. Open hollow corner bracket, in the past, he used to close hollow corner bracket. Nike and Nemesis had emerged for the first time in a while, and they seemed full of joy as they spoke to Kronos. And obviously, most of their topics were the things Yi and Wu did. Open hollow corner bracket, Shannon even composed a theme song. Open hollow corner bracket, Shannon did. Kronos, eyes widened. Shannon, who was standing next to them and occasionally adding his 2 cents, stood up straighter and replied loudly. Open corner bracket, yes, sir. I sure did. Open hollow corner bracket, what is it? Open corner bracket, it's a bit embarrassing, but I will do it for you, Grandmaster. Stabbing in the back, what a fun song, musical note. Open hollow corner bracket, ah. The beat and the rhythm are both brilliant. If some alcohol and food were added to the mix, they would look like men at a company dinner trying to impress their boss. Yi and Wu became filled with more and more disbelief. Why were they flattering Kronos and calling him Grandmaster? Because Kronos was his father? No, it was clear they were doing it with the intent to tease him, and his father was enjoying it as well. Seeing both Hanryong and the elusive Rebecca enjoying themselves with Kronos made Yi and Wu feel confused as to who was really their master. Just then, Yi and Wu felt a hand on his shoulder and turned around. Bu nodded at him wordlessly. Clatter, clatter, there's no one I can trust but this guy. Yi and Wu let out a deep sigh. Open hollow corner bracket, all of them are quite nice. Kronos smiled in satisfaction, having enjoyed himself for the first time in a long while. Yi and Wu just stared at him. Open hollow corner bracket, him. It looks like you want to tell me a lot of things. No, it's all right. Yi and Wu knew better than anyone else that things would only get difficult for him if he complained. It was obvious that Kronos was waiting for him to protest and grumble. Open hollow corner bracket, but about Nemesis and Nike. Kronos grinned as if he knew what Yi and Wu was thinking and changed the subject. Open hollow corner bracket, they sleep quite frequently these days, don't they? Yes. Open hollow corner bracket, mythical beasts are creatures that live and die because of dreams. But dreams are made up of desires, whether an individual is aware of them or not. The stronger you become, the thinner that line becomes, and in the end, the possibility of a beast becoming synchronized with their owner becomes higher. Yi and Wu nodded heavily. He had been thinking this as well. The trial of the 11th was to awaken your own beast, which meant all players who cleared the 11th floor possessed one. However, although Yi and Wu had met many players, he hadn't been able to see most of their beasts. This was because most players hatched their beasts too quickly since they wanted to move on from the 11th floor, leaving them with a beast that couldn't assist them later on, or else, they consumed the beasts to make up for the magic power they lacked. Even if none of those two descriptions applied, most beasts were synchronized with their owners as their owners became stronger. Currently, this was the situation with Nike and Nemesis. Yi and Wu had given them free will and a safe haven, the Philosopher's Stone. But now that he was on the verge of exuviation, the two beasts were completely disconnected from the world of dreams. Yi and Wu didn't even dream anymore, and so Nike lived in the fire that burned his enemies to ashes while Nemesis slept inside the shadow that crept over the ground. These two properties were now Nike and Nemesis themselves. As time went on, the beasts would become completely synchronized to fire and shadow, but Yi and Wu didn't want to lose them like this. Nike was another part of himself, and Nemesis still desperately yearned for Jung-woo. Kronos could sense Yi and Wu's feelings. Open hollow corner bracket, I think it would be nice for me to connect them to the real ones later on. He was referring to Nike, the goddess of victory, and Nemesis, the goddess of revenge. Then that means, open hollow corner bracket, those grannies are probably treated as elders now and bored with all the time they have on their hands. We can say it's a present from the new king. And if they don't listen, we can just force them. An apostle position should be enough, don't you think? Yi and Wu's eyes widened, but he soon grinned. Only his father could think of something like this. However, he could also see Kronos' hidden purpose. The elders were the great divine beings who existed before Uranus had waged war in the heavenly world. They were so old that they were now like conceptual gods, and it was no exaggeration to say they were the root of Olympus. They might be weak, but having their support would make it easier for Yi and Wu to rule Olympus. Kronos had come up with an idea that could directly connect Yi and Wu to the elders. Essentially, I've forced Zeus and the others down to get to where I am. There wasn't a lot of resistance since he'd come into the position after defeating the Titans and Gigantes, but the supporters of the three brothers could rise up against him at any time. Furthermore, Yin Wu was in a strange situation where, despite being a supreme god, he wasn't actually sitting on the throne. Although Athena was ruling in his stead, there were limits to what she could do, and the elders could take over the things that she couldn't do. Yin Wu came to a sharp realization that Kronos was trying to help him. Open hollow corner bracket and you need to strengthen Vigrid now. Yin Wu cocked his head, not understanding Kronos. Kronos smirked. Open hollow corner bracket, you're confused. Yes. Vigrid is already impeccable, isn't it? After the Spring of Death was activated, Vigrid already showed the value of a great holy artifact. In fact, since Vigrid could be said to be Kronos himself, it was so much more than that. It could be called a great divine being in itself. Why would it need to be strengthened? If that were the case, there was only one way to do so. It needs to be combined with the Spring of Time. If Yin Wu combined Vigrid with the pocket watch he had left behind with Ananta, Kronos would stand again. However, Yin Wu didn't want to think about that right now. If he tried to force the time of spring out, Jung Wu's vestige body might be ruined. There was no way Kronos didn't know about this either, so he was likely speaking about a different way of strengthening Vigrid. Open hollow corner bracket. Although I created Vigrid, this isn't the final form I planned. It's only partially complete. Only then did Yin Wu realize what Kronos was trying to say. After Kronos had fallen to earth, he wanted to become transcendent again and restore his lost divinity to take back the throne of the King of Gods. However, he hadn't been on Earth long enough to restore all the divinity he had once possessed, and he created Vigrid instead. That meant Vigrid was the product of only the legends he had collected on Earth. Open hollow corner bracket. Technically yes. Vigrid doesn't contain legends, they're closer to folklore or myths, heroic legends that are of a lower grade. Heroes needed to gather faith and raise the level of their souls to be called a god, so folktales couldn't be compared to legends. You're telling me to change the folktales inside of Vigrid to legends? Open hollow corner bracket. Correct. Kronos nodded heavily. Open hollow corner bracket. They absorbed my physical body, which means the legends that were inside it have now combined with your legends. Then if I input all your legends into this open hollow corner bracket, Vigrid will take on a new shape. And I'll be quite different as well. It meant Kronos would be fully resurrected. Yin Wu shivered instinctively. If he combined with the strengthened Vigrid, how far would his strength reach? Open hollow corner bracket. Do you see your father's greatness now? Kronos saw that Yin Wu understood what he'd been trying to say and smiled. Although Yin Wu had disapproved of his father's past choices, he begrudgingly nodded and acknowledged this time. Open hollow corner bracket. Vigrid isn't a real name. It was just a false name to hide its true names. But even among those, there is only one true name. What is it? Open hollow corner bracket. Scythe. Scythe. Yin Wu remembered seeing this name among the many names of Vigrid. Scythe was the great holy artifact Kronos had cherished when he was still king of gods. It was said that Gaia had forged it from adamant when she gathered the first metals of the universe. It was a weapon that could slice through anything in the world, even your opponent's time to make it pause and lead them to death. It was also the scythe that Kronos had used to slash the demonism in the world of his conscious mind. Open hollow corner bracket. I heard Zeus and the others destroyed it and scattered it throughout the universe because it was ominous, but there's no reason why I won't be able to recreate something I've already created. Yin Wu could feel Kronos' eyes glinting. Although Kronos had given up on satisfying his long-held grudge after Yin Wu and Jung Wu were born, he would be able to resume it now. Open hollow corner bracket, and that will be enough to close hollow corner bracket. Deal with Alpharone. Yin Wu felt a hole appear in the wall that seemed impossible to break, allowing light to shine through. Open hollow corner bracket. I believe so. The only way to cut his light is with scythe. Kronos clenched his fists. Bam, 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 bam. Heneva diligently worked on the large statue that the martial king had requested. As it was the request of the great king of the one-horned tribe, he had to fully concentrate on it, so he had temporarily closed down the smithy. He didn't even know how much time had passed as he focused solely on the statue. What an impressive guy. Do dwarves all have a one-track mind? Should I ask him to make me one after that's finished? How's this pose? My eyes. How about you suck in that stomach first? Son of a bitch. Ouch. Anyhow, I thought our leader was doing something unseemly at the beginning. But looking at it now, it seems even more unseemly. Ha ha ha, you're right, and it's ugly. Yeah, ugly, eek, what is it, eek, K-King, who's ugly? I, K-King, we were only, good, I happen to feel bored right now. I'll make you even uglier. Come on. The tribe members giggled over the statue and made snide comments, but no one doubted Hinova's ability. As always, it was a peaceful yet noisy day, when the martial king greeted a visitor. It's been a while, master. It was the skinny man wrapped in bandages, Faceless. Then, Faceless suddenly twisted his head at an odd angle like a doll and spoke in a thick voice that was different from the dark voice he'd been speaking in. Or should I call you, brother? It was the voice of Flank, the spear god. What a hideous monster. The martial king's reaction after seeing Faceless was straightforward. How could so many souls be stuffed into a single body? It was a ridiculous sight. I heard you caused some trouble, and I wondered how you did it. The martial king crossed his arms and scoffed. It had been early in the morning when he heard that there was a trespasser in the village. At first, he wondered what kind of crazy guy was causing trouble before the sun was even up, but now, he was glad that he'd have a chance to have some fun for the first time in a while. The One-Horned tribe had ruled as the strongest race in the tower for a long time, and countless clans and rankers had challenged their position. Of course, they were all defeated, but even battling the One-Horned tribe was considered a great honor among martial artists. Also, the guests of the One-Horned tribe were known to improve significantly, so the entrance to the village was always bustling. It was tradition for one of the tribe members to step out to deal with the visitors and accept the deserving ones, with the rest kicked out. However, at some point, that tradition began to fade away, and it completely disappeared. In fact, this coincided with the time that the martial king came into power. Because he was called the strongest king ever in the history of the One-Horned tribe's kings, the difference in power between him and his challengers was too wide. There was no way the arrogant martial king would be satisfied with just anyone. Why would you take in those things that don't even amount to the bottom of my shoe? If they can't land a single strike at me, kick them out. His words eventually became the reason that most of the annoying flies were shooed away. The number of guests was drastically decreased, and only those who were truly acknowledged could enter the village. As time went on, hardly any guests arrived. As a result, the martial king had been interested to hear that a visitor had arrived. He thought he'd have some entertainment, but he never imagined he'd come face to face with a monster like this. So, you want me to return your horn? The martial king treated Faceless like a stranger. He didn't treat the being as his younger brother or his disciple anymore, only a monster stuffed up with grudges. That was all Faceless was. I have the right to request it, don't I? Back when Cheonwado was still active, the spear god had given up his horn in exchange for the One-Horned tribe's help against Red Dragon. To the tribe members, giving up your horn meant giving up your identity as a One-Horned tribe member. Because it meant that you'd let go of all authority and responsibilities as a tribe member, it was considered a humiliation. But Faceless was now shamelessly asking for it back. The request was so astounding that it wasn't even funny for the One-Horned tribe. Request? How? You didn't fulfill your end of the bargain. I requested the One-Horned tribe to participate as an ally, and you promised to do so. However, you ended the war as bystanders. I was the one who defeated Ismanios in the end. That's a separate matter. You didn't carry out the promise you made to Cheonwado. And if I say no, I'll put in a formal request to the elders. The request was becoming more ridiculous. You think the geezers will listen? A few will. You've already made arrangements with a few of them. There are quite a few who are dissatisfied with you. On the outside, the One-Horned tribe seemed like a strong and stable clan centered around the martial king. Since everyone was lighthearted and only sought a higher level of martial arts, it appeared as if they didn't have any problems. However, there were divisions among the tribe, just like any other society. It was because the One-Horned tribe was an alliance of 50 main families under their common ancestor, Xiaohao Jintian. Recently, a few of those families had been feeling threatened. The head elder, the martial king, and even Fant and Adora, who were growing at a fast pace, were all part of the Cheongram family. The Cheongram family's power had surpassed the others by now, and protests and complaints were inevitable. It was only that no one brought it up because the martial king was still in power, but it was like a bomb that could explode at any moment. Now that Faceless was poking his nose into the matter, a few of the elders who weren't loyal to the Cheongram family were clearly tempted. The martial king crossed his arms. He was still smirking. Okay, fine, and if you get your horn back, what will you do after that? I'm sure that's not the end. I will wage war. War. Against who? You, of course. The Martial King was speechless. I must take that throne you're sitting on. The Martial King's eyes widened in surprise, and he soon burst out laughing. What, you, this position? He continued to laugh, but Faceless remained composed. I am also the son of the former king, so my lineage is unquestionable. After I take back my horn, I will have the proper qualifications as well. Then, I will challenge you for the position of tribe leader. The method to become the king of the one-horned tribe was simple. First, you needed to be a member of the families that had the blood of Xiaohao Jintian, and second, you needed to be the strongest out of all of them. No matter how many parties or supporters you had, in the end, the position of the tribe leader was decided by pure strength since the one-horned tribe was the first group to create martial arts. A tribe leader had no choice but to accept challenges by his relatives, as long as there weren't any issues with their lineage. It was the very first rule of their tribe, survival of the fittest. Only the strongest were valuable, and they deserved to take everything. Again, there are many elders who are dissatisfied with you. After I become king, I don't plan on having any children. I can't, anyway. That meant that the king would come from another family. As long as Faceless promised this, there wouldn't be much difficulty for him to return his flank. Faceless, eyes flashed through the bandages. What will you do, brother? The provocative question made the Martial King grin. Bring it on. After Faceless made an official request to the elders, the Martial King was alerted by the urgent voice of the psychic medium. Open hollow corner bracket, it's a trap. I know. Open hollow corner bracket, their goal is to get a one-on-one meeting with you. They will try to assassinate you there. Obviously. Open hollow corner bracket you. The psychic medium's voice turned sharp. She was always composed, but as the same divinations repeated in the past few days, she grew more anxious as the time approached. On the other hand, the Martial King was indifferent, as if it weren't any of his business. My wifey's voice is shaking. It's been a while since it's been like that. In the past, you used to do that when we just held hands. These days, you've gotten so old. Open hollow corner bracket, hey. The Martial King was cut off mid-sentence, but he grinned. Wifey. Open hollow corner bracket, what? It sounded like she was trying to suppress her anger because her voice was rough. Don't worry too much. In the end, she exploded. Open hollow corner bracket, you idiot. How can I not? I'm the Martial King. I'm Nayu. The psychic medium was silent. Her husband had always been too confident. This was the reason she had fallen for him, but at times, she despised it. He never cared when she worried about him. You said I'm destined to die, right? The Martial King could clearly picture the psychic medium's face as if she were in front of him. I guarantee that won't happen. When Faceless left, he was smiling. Did he know that the Martial King was also smiling as well? And it hadn't been a smirk, but a genuine smile. It had been too long since he'd had a challenger. After the Summer Queen died, the Martial King had been living in boredom every day, so this was the first fun he'd had for a long time. The only entertainment he had was listening to the news about his disciple causing trouble somewhere. I have to also break destiny in order to be called the Martial King, isn't that right? The Martial King's eyes flashed as he smiled mischievously. Yi and Wu immediately began preparing to create scythe according to Chronos' guidance. What do I need to do to strengthen Vigrid? Open hollow corner bracket, first, you need to gather materials. Materials. Open hollow corner bracket, you already have the contents. You have all my legends, and the springs are running more smoothly than before. Then, I need a vessel. Open hollow corner bracket, correct. Since he already had everything, all he needed was ore for forging Vigrid. What was the original material you used for Vigrid, I mean, scythe? Open hollow corner bracket, what else? Adamant. I knew it. Yi and Wu sighed. Adamant. It was the strongest and most magical material in the world. Because he had once acquired it to create Kaini, he knew better than anyone how rare it was. Is the adamant that you need adamantine nova? Open hollow corner bracket, of course. If it's not nova, what else could it be? Chronos spoke as if adamantine nova were a common mineral that was easily acquired. Yi and Wu felt like Chronos, common knowledge was way above his. Because he had sat on the throne of the King of Gods for eons, his spending habits were too extravagant for Yi and Wu to comprehend. How much do you need? In comparison to Kaini. Open hollow corner bracket, Kaini. That thing the Cyclops made for Hades. Yes. Open hollow corner bracket, sun. Yi and Wu waited. Open hollow corner bracket, a helm made up of a combination of other metals and a scythe created purely of the material. How much more do you think? Yi and Wu didn't reply. Open hollow corner bracket 10 times. You need at least that much to even attempt to change Vigrid. Yi and Wu covered his face with his hand. He would need to spend more than he'd expected. With his hand still over his face, he stood up, and a red portal appeared below his feet. Open hollow corner bracket, where are you going? Adamantine Nova won't just drop from the sky. Open hollow corner bracket, it did for me. Just what kind of life did this man live? That might have been because there were abundant resources during your era, but there's no way Olympus and I can afford it now. And adamant isn't a material you can obtain that easily anyway. Open hollow corner bracket him. I did hear something about that. I'll have to look for someone who has adamantine nova or knows where I might find it. Open hollow corner bracket, who is it? Muttering the name of the Gumiho who was who knows where, Yi and Wu stepped inside the portal. Anastasia. Master, I'm not sure, but she's probably on the 11th floor. She said something in passing about needing something related to dreams. But why are you what? Say that again. Sorry, but don't say anything about how I helped you find her, I might die this time. Fortunately, after contacting Victoria, Yi and Wu found out where Anastasia was. This is the 11th floor, the Gate of Dreams. The 11th floor was incredibly peaceful, as always. It was warm, as if his soul were being embraced, a feeling that he hadn't felt before. The shackles of the legendary beasts rise upon sensing the presence of a powerful being. The demonic beasts confirm the presence of a powerful being and take shelter. All mythical beasts hold their breath in your presence. However, the mythical beasts couldn't say the same thing when Yi and Wu showed up. Mythical beasts were more like spirits than physical beings. Because they were more sensitive, his sudden intrusion made them fearful. To them, he was like a massive tsunami heading their way. What's wrong? Chen, get a grip. I think my egg is going to crack. The players who were focusing on the trial of the 11th floor were confused by the sudden reactions of their beasts. Yi and Wu knew that it wasn't good for him to stay on this floor too long, so he planned on leaving as soon as he took care of his business. However, one particular message had stood out to him among all the others. Legendary beasts. Aren't they all dead? Hanryong had killed the 4 legendary beasts during Cheongwado and Red Dragon's War. Did new legendary beasts appear after he had left the stage? He could feel something suddenly coming his way. Space opened directly in front of him. I was wondering who it was. You again. Anastasia was glaring at Yi and Wu in annoyance when suddenly, Vigrid transformed into Kronos, who looked at her with surprise. Open hollow corner bracket him. Aren't you, Popo, Ray's pet? Anastasia looked flustered. It was a sharp contrast to the cold or angry reactions she always had. Kronos didn't know anything about that, and he walked around Anastasia, examining her carefully. Open hollow corner bracket, I'm pretty sure you are. Anastasia turned away and avoided Kronos' gaze. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Open hollow corner bracket, you are, right? She didn't reply. Open hollow corner bracket, there's no way you aren't. Kronos tried to look into Anastasia's eyes, but Anastasia continued to turn her head in the opposite direction. Kronos looked confused about her behavior at first, then he grinned. Open hollow corner bracket paw. He held his right hand out, and Anastasia's hand immediately responded. Open hollow corner bracket, so, you are. Kronos smirked as he looked at Anastasia's hand on top of his palm. Anastasia paled, and she turned to look at Kronos stiffly, like a robot that hadn't been oiled. Are you really Lord Kronos? Open hollow corner bracket, who else could it be? Impossible. Anastasia looked extremely shocked. She had believed Kronos was dead. Then, realizing that someone else was watching her, she carefully asked Kronos another question with a tight face. Then what about that that guy? Anastasia barely stopped herself from saying, bastard, but her hope that Yi and Wu had nothing to do with this was crushed immediately after. Open hollow corner bracket, my son. At that moment, Anastasia saw a dreadful sight behind Kronos. It was Yi and Wu, who was smiling evilly at her. You have entered the tower's outer district. It's not much, but please make yourself comfortable. Anastasia led the father and son to her residence in the outer district. After Yi and Wu saw the intact roof and streets, he asked, looks like things have already been restored, Popo. If you you hadn't left the place in shambles back then, it would be even more vibrant now. Anastasia felt anger rising to her head when she thought about what had happened then. Yi and Wu had caused a significant amount of damage the last time he came to the entertainment district to look for her. She was involved with many places here, and she ended up spending a lot of time and money to restore everything. Moreover, it wasn't easy to lure back visitors after all the ruckus. In the end, she had gone through a lot of effort to find her disciple, and she even lost her adamantine nova to Yin Wu. Her anger boiled over when she thought about it because there was nothing she loved than indolence. And now, Yin Wu had learned the one name she never wanted anyone to know about. Although she wanted to tell him to shut up, she couldn't because Kronos was looking at them. Who would have imagined Yin Wu's true identity was that? On the way, Anastasia had listened to a brief summary of what had happened from Kronos. Kronos and Ray's son, it was unbelievable, and on top of that, he had become Olympus' supreme god. She did sense that the energy of the heavens and the tower's system had changed recently, but she hadn't known it was due to this. Even though she had left, she had once been affiliated with Olympus as well. Her surprise was evident. At the same time, she wondered why it had to be Yin Wu and cursed her misfortune. She didn't know what to feel. She was glad her old master had returned and Olympus had returned to normal, but she also felt like she would be led around the nose now. I apologize for what happened back then. Anastasia paused as she served Kronos tea and refreshments. She frowned at Yin Wu's sudden apology. Her distrust in Yin Wu was still too great. And her instincts didn't betray her. But, Anastasia paused. Have you forgotten to call me, Oppa, Popo? Or you can call me, Master, Popo. Anastasia ground her teeth. The tray in her hand snapped in half. Open hollow corner bracket. What are all those? Kronos was about to drink the tea Anastasia placed in front of him when he suddenly asked about the children peeking at them from behind the sliding door. When the children's eyes met his, they jumped in surprise and hid themselves. Anastasia said with a light sigh, they are fairies. Open hollow corner bracket fairies. Kronos' eyes widened slightly. Then, he smiled. Open hollow corner bracket, so that's why they have the same scent as you do. You have the same hobbies as Rhea. Anastasia lowered her head. She was silent for a moment. Open hollow corner bracket, may I ask how you've been all this time? She nodded and began to speak. It was a voice that was different from the usual, calm and composed one she had. The children who assisted her seemed taken aback by this side of her, and their eyes turned red at the solemn atmosphere. When Lady Rhea first tried to leave to find you, the wolf and I tried to stop her. Anastasia said that at the time, she didn't think Rhea was in her right mind. Kronos nodded in understanding. He would have felt the same if he'd been in their situation. Pulling out his springs to descend to the world below was something only he could do. Reincarnation was a subject that even divine beings didn't truly understand yet, which was why the gods of Olympus had perceived Kronos' death as a real one. In fact, it was rather incredible that Rhea didn't believe he was truly dead and tried to find him. Although Anastasia was trying to say it as nicely as possible, she had probably thought Rhea had gone crazy from seeing her children dethrone her husband. After all, it would have been odd if Rhea had been in her right mind despite that. However, Lady Rhea reassured us and said she'd return soon. Then, she left the tower. Open hollow corner bracket, and you guys were left in the heavenly world. Yes. Open hollow corner bracket, you must have suffered quite a bit from some disgusting fools. And no, sir. Open hollow corner bracket, sure. Kronos snorted. Being a divine being didn't mean you were of superior character. Once, Kronos had believed the opposite was true. As the son of Mother Earth, he'd lived as a prince of Olympus and had even become the king of gods. He had thought it impossible for divine beings and mortals to be on par with each other. Divine beings were holy and supreme, and they were superior to all. However, after he fell to earth and lived multiple lives, he realized that he had been wrong. In the end, everyone was the same. Everyone wanted to have more and climb higher. Of course, there were some beings who were truly worthy. There were many beings who were righteous and deserved to be respected. However, there were even more greedy hyenas who tore at each other to grow more powerful. Kronos had seen this too many times, and it was obvious what Anastasia had experienced in Kronos and Ray's absence. She had chosen to leave the heavenly world without knowing what to do. To Anastasia, Rhea was more than a master. Rhea had been everything. Rhea had given Anastasia love and taken care of her like a mother. How hurt had Anastasia felt when Rhea disappeared, leaving her alone in this cold and vast world. The happy memories and emotions of the past would become injuries that hurt her, and she must have tried to search for other things to fill that void. Drugs, alcohol, carnal activities, staying idle despite the power she possessed. Kronos could see that Anastasia must have lived with a great deal of pain. Open hollow corner bracket, how is Pepe? The wolf is doing well. Unlike me, she believed in Lady Rhea. Before leaving Olympus, Rhea had said she would return someday with Kronos. Open hollow corner bracket. Is that so? Kronos smiled sadly as he tapped his teacup. If he had a physical body, he would have liked to get drunk. During times like this, his spiritual body wasn't enough. But, Lord Kronos, open hollow corner bracket. Yes. Go ahead, Popo. Even though it was a coincidence, meeting like this is fate. Is there something you'd like to ask me? Anastasia glanced at Kronos, as if she were feeling embarrassed about what she was about to say. She was slightly blushing. Open hollow corner bracket. Go ahead. At Kronos' soft urging, she forced herself to speak. Open hollow corner bracket. My name, Popo. Open hollow corner bracket. Popo. What about it? Would it be possible for you to stop saying that? Kronos' eyes widened, and he burst out laughing. Then, with an angry face, he turned to look at Yi and Wu and shouted, open hollow corner bracket. Yi and Wu. Stop teasing Popo about her name. Popo is embarrassed. My Popo. He seemed to be scolding Yi and Wu, but he was emphasizing Popo the entire time. Lord Kronos. Anastasia's face was now entirely red. Open hollow corner bracket. Stop calling my Popo, Popo. Only I can call her, Popo. You know Popo is embarrassed. What a wretched personality you have. Isn't that right, Popo? Close hollow corner bracket. Anastasia was speechless. Open hollow corner bracket. Ha ha ha. Kronos. Laughter boomed and Yi and Wu shook his head. He was the one with a wretched personality. Kronos managed to settle down after some time. During that time, Yi and Wu organized his thoughts. He didn't know that Victoria's master, who was such a powerful person, would have such ties to him. At the same time, he was beginning to understand many things, such as why Kronos didn't know how difficult it was to obtain adamantine nova. All he had to do was ask Anastasia. Furthermore, considering how Anastasia liked to collect artifacts and valuables, she had probably done the same thing in Olympus, too. She had likely brought back precious treasures without him having to lift a finger, and he would have been quite grateful to her. What about Frisia, the one Anastasia called a wolf? While questions spun inside Yi and Wu's head, Kronos sat down so they could talk. Open hollow corner bracket. Although I've been teasing her, Popo isn't a pet. She's more special than that. He told Yi and Wu to treat Anastasia with care. Yi and Wu thought it was ridiculous that his father would say that, but his eyes soon widened at what Kronos said after. Open hollow corner bracket. She is your mother's shadow. What? Open hollow corner bracket. Your mother made her by sharing her holy power. It was an unexpected statement. Open hollow corner bracket. Your mother enjoyed these things. She liked taking care of things and raising them. Do you remember? Yi and Wu nodded. On Earth, Rhea had enjoyed raising plants despite their poverty. She often took in stray cats and dogs as well. Open hollow corner bracket. The reason why Popo raises these fairies and spirits and takes care of the legendary beasts on the 11th floor is most likely due to your mother's influence. This entertainment district, for example, is where pitiful creatures who have nowhere else to go gather, as well. I heard she's called Great Mother here. Yi and Wu recalled how Anastasia had taken care of Victoria even though she grumbled that her disciple didn't listen to her. Open hollow corner bracket. Also. Just then, Kronos suddenly spoke through the mind so only Yi and Wu could hear. Open hollow corner bracket. I think she's hiding something. Keep a close eye on her. Yi and Wu's eyes narrowed. What do you think it is? Open hollow corner bracket. I don't know. But I'm certain it has something to do with your mother. Yi and Wu's expression tightened. Kronos suddenly shouted at the sliding door. Open hollow corner bracket. Popo. The door opened, and Anastasia, who had been waiting outside, bowed after she entered. Yes, Lord Kronos. She didn't try to show her face because she didn't want them to see her red eyes. Just as she had told Kronos about her life, Kronos had also told her what happened to Rhea. She had been quietly calming her emotions outside, although it had been a struggle. Open hollow corner bracket. There's something I want to request. Can you do it? What's mine? Anastasia paused to catch her breath and continued in a polite voice. What's mine is yours and young master #s. Open hollow corner bracket. It's no longer unnecessary to say, master. It's all in the past. Anyway, we want to restore Scythe, and we need your help. You need adamantine nova, is that correct? Open hollow corner bracket. Yes. Dare I ask how much you need? Open hollow corner bracket. As much as possible. Anastasia sighed as if she had been expecting this answer. Then, she bit her lower lip. This place is different from the outside world. Resources are limited within the tower, so I might be able to obtain 1 or 2 and I cannot guarantee the price either. Open hollow corner bracket. Is there no other way? Anastasia thought for a moment and nodded. The wolf happens to be doing business, so I will summon the creature. Open hollow corner bracket. Pepe. Yes. Open hollow corner bracket. I've always known that child is resourceful and talented, but she's gone into business. Kronos, eyes widened. Open hollow corner bracket. She's added to Ray's inheritance, which means she now operates a substantial business. Yi and Wu's eyes lit up as he listened to their conversation. Then by the table is. The wolf the two were referring to was probably the leader, Frisia. Yi and Wu smirked. Who would have guessed that by the table, which not only has a network in the tower but across multiple universes and dimensions, would have such an origin? Yi and Wu was once more reminded of how influential his father and mother had once been. Back on Earth, he never imagined they were anything more than a normal family. Of course, even though his mother and Frisia had a previous relationship, he couldn't take advantage of it. He could only appeal to Frisia's mercy. If Yi and Wu could rely on by the table, he would be able to obtain adamantine nova from outside the tower. Open hollow corner bracket. Then, I'll be relying on you. At Kronos' request, Anastasia nodded and slowly got up. Although she and Frisia had an antagonistic relationship, Anastasia had no doubt that Frisia would be happy to receive this news. Wow, he's so handsome. The Martial King grinned as he looked at the newly completed statue of himself. His shoulders straightened as he observed the statue's dignified posture, which seemed to symbolize a great monarch leading his clan to glory. The statue's shoulders are wider than those of its subject. The chin is too narrow, and the bridge of the nose is higher too. Who would realize this statue is our tribal chief? And why is it so big? Isn't that just a waste of space? Unlike the proud Martial King, the head elder adjusted his glasses as he criticized the statue. When he saw Heneva coming down from the statue, the head elder asked, Heneva, I understand that you need to take some artistic liberties, but don't you think you've gone too far? You've also gone way over budget. Hey, old fogey, what are you talking about? What artistic liberties? Anyone can easily see that it's me. The Martial King loudly voiced his opinion, but the head elder paid no attention to him. Puffing on a pipe, Heneva simply shrugged, not even bothering to make excuses. I'm only doing what I was asked to do. The person who paid me so generously is standing next to you, so ask him. The head elder's eyes narrowed as he glared at the Martial King. You bastard chieftain, I should have known you were up to no good when you asked for additional funds with some bullshit reason about additional expenses. HMPH. What do you mean, up to no good? Head elder, watch your words. Who do you think I am, huh? What do I represent to this clan, Who has led this tribe to prosperity? Am I not even allowed this? Did you know that you are doing things that even the great Xiaohao Jintian didn't even do? Since Xiaohao Jintian didn't do it, I'll do it. The Martial King made a loud ahem before puffing up his chest. As usual, the head elder suppressed his desire to tear off the Martial King's face. What could the head elder do? No matter how much the Martial King's behavior annoyed him, the Martial King was the tribe's chieftain, even if he didn't act that way. Today's statue was a prime example. It had been a long time since the one-horned tribe settled in the tower, and they had produced countless chieftains. However, none of them had dared erect a statue of themselves. No matter how strong and great they were, none of them could even match the achievements of the tribe's founder, Xiaohao Jintian. However, the Martial King had disregarded this precedent so easily. What else could it mean other than the Martial King was bragging that he was better than his ancestors? Naturally, the tribe members simply reacted with a, hey, what an ugly and interesting statue. The head elder believed that anything related to the tribe had to be discussed first and proper procedures followed, but the Martial King had arbitrarily and unilaterally made his own decision. If he's not a tyrant, who else could be one? Moreover, not all opinions within the tribe were favorable towards the Martial King's decision. Several families, including the Bakshan family hostile toward the Cheongram family that had produced the Martial King and the head elder, expressed their dissatisfaction. However, since the Martial King had such a huge influence within the tribe and tower, their dissent was not overt and didn't amount to much of a dispute. However, the dissenters were a powder keg that might explode at any moment. Even a spark could set off a chain reaction. This little kid knows this too, so why, unable to comprehend what the Martial King was thinking, the head elder furrowed his brow as he looked at the Martial King. The head elder decided to get straight to the point. You've heard that Flank's status was restored this morning during the elders' conference, right? Oh, that, it's all you can say. The creases deepened on the elder's forehead. Normally, the head elder was known for his calm personality, which was why he gained his nickname, philosopher, but it was difficult for him to remain calm when it came to the martial king. Can you really refer to it as that? You know that he's ranting all over the place saying that he's going to take your place, right? The martial king laughed bitterly. Old fogey, why are you laughing? Does the head elder consider his words a possibility? Of course not. How could I consider an insignificant individual like Flank a danger? Then, doesn't that answer your question? You also know that it's not that black and white. The head elder was going to continue and say that Flank was clearly setting up a trap. It was the same thing that the martial king's wife, the psychic medium, had said. Why else would anyone insist on a fight with an obvious outcome? It was too suspicious. Of course, underhanded actions like this were usually ignored since head elder knew just how much of a monster the martial king was. In fact, the martial king had always destroyed any challenge thrown his way with overwhelming power. However, the present situation was different due to the psychic medium's prophecy. The head elder knew just how important and significant the prophecy's words were, so he could not overlook even the smallest detail. In the end, the angered head elder scolded the martial king for a long time. The martial king covered his ears with his hands and continued admiring the statue as if nothing was going on. When the head elder's breathing started to grow a little rough, the martial king finally responded. Are you done with your scolding now? You bastard! The head elder seriously contemplated slapping the martial king, who had on a carefree smile. Even in this situation, the martial king couldn't take his eyes off of the statue that was his spitting image, at least, this was what he thought. As soon as he regained his status as a member of the tribe, Faceless immediately challenged the chieftain's throne as he had threatened. The duel for the throne was one of the one-horned tribe's rituals, and only those who were victorious were entitled to the throne. So far, the martial king's power and skills were so overwhelming that no one had ever challenged him. Since they hadn't had a big event in a while, the members of the tribe grew excited. Despite the ritual's name, the duel for the throne did not take place in a solemn atmosphere. The event was more like a festival. If a new king was crowned, it was a joyous occasion to see a strong leader emerge. If the current king held onto the throne, then it meant that he was reaffirming his qualifications. This was welcome news as well. With Xiao Hao Jintian's blessing, the king and the challenger would both participate in a sacred duel, and there was no festival better than this. Of course, not all members of the tribe were happy. Brother, how did this happen? Adora's frown deepened as she hugged her sword, divine evil, tightly. As she continued to follow Yan Wu's orders to rise up the tower and serve in Arthea, Adora received the news from her tribe and felt a deep sense of gloom. A duel between the martial king and Faceless, a clash between her father and her uncle. Adora had only good memories of Flank from her childhood, and discovering that things had deteriorated to such a state was depressing. She hoped that the duel would not turn into a bloodbath. Fant felt the same, and he had not spoken much since he stepped foot into the village. I don't get it. To be honest, you're the smart one between us, right? Fante's voice was subdued. He continued, even though I'm dumb, I do know one thing. Uncle is now our enemy. Slowly and bluntly, Fant said, if our uncle only wanted the throne, I would have cheered him on. If our uncle wanted to prove his martial arts against father, I would have cheered him on. I would have understood our uncle's feelings better than anyone else. Fant was still greedily eyeing the position of chieftain. In fact, Fant desired to surpass his father one day. But our uncle is not like that. He mixed himself up with the wrong things, and he's done things that could have harmed the tribe. He has let go of the pride of being a martial arts warrior. Furthermore, he's been secretly working on developing a drug. I can't forgive him for that. Fant still had not forgotten what Doyle had said to him before he came here. The Black Prince isn't the only one Faceless is involved with. He's mixed in with quite a lot of unruly characters. Among them anyway. Be careful, Fant hung. It's likely something will happen. I'll continue to keep an eye on you, as well. We'll prepare to intervene if necessary. However, at the time, Fant flatly rejected Doyle's offer of assistance. The tribe handled its own affairs and would never allow outside interference. However, this did not mean that Fant had ignored Doyle's words. On the contrary, Fant had been on high alert for any external influences in the tribal village. Fant had already told the members of the Cheongram family to be on the lookout for unwanted guests on the outskirts of the village, just in case. If they tried any tricks, as Fant expected they would, Fant and the Cheongram family would immediately subdue them. Moreover, Fant was confident that he now possessed the power to execute his plan and protect his people. You're correct. Adora nodded but looked at Fant with curious eyes. She wondered when his thinking had grown so mature. After struggling outside the village for a period, Fant had lost much of his immaturity. He was grown up enough to be the head of a family. The siblings grew quiet, staring intently at the entrance of the village. He's coming in now. At Fante's words, Adora's eyes turned to the direction that Fant was referring to. Faceless slowly made his way down a path, heading towards the siblings, his skinny body wrapped in bandages. With every step he took, the dark and ghastly fighting spirit that Faceless emitted grew stronger. No one would have recognized the once arrogant and confident flank. In addition, those who followed behind Faceless were familiar faces to Fant and Adora. So, it's true, it seems that Jang and the Baektion family have attached themselves to the other side. They weren't the only ones. The Changyu family, the Jacob family, and the Shinyo family had also joined in. Although the overwhelming power of the Cheongram family had suppressed them, the families that gathered behind Faceless were all influential ones. They had not tried anything in a while, and it seemed that they'd been busy plotting against the Cheongram family. Adora could not quite understand their decision. It was understandable why they would support Faceless, but they also had to be aware that Faceless didn't stand a chance of winning against the martial king. Were they not concerned about the oppression they might face after the duel was done? No, more than that, they wouldn't have been able to avoid Mother's gaze, right? What method did they use? The power of Adora's sight was already close to that of a god's, but Faceless was still shrouded in mystery to her. As she wondered about this, Faceless already reached the martial king. A current of tension flowed between the two. However, their auras were completely different. Faceless's aura was like that of a sharp sword, whereas the martial king's was relaxed. Have you been all right, bro? Faceless asked in a hoarse, halting voice that made one shiver. The martial king merely smirked as he glanced at Faceless and the elders of the various families behind him. Well, I slept deeply last night. By the way, what are those things hanging behind you? So cumbersome and gaudy. Thankfully, there are many people who support me. It's not like we're fooling around to find out who's the neighborhood leader. Your actions are laughable. Only an idiot wouldn't know whom the martial king was speaking to. Naturally, the faces of the elders standing behind Faceless flushed with embarrassment. Some were about to argue with the martial king about his choice of words. Anyway, the martial king completely ignored the elders' reactions as if he couldn't care less and waved his hand at Faceless. Come on, let's finish this quickly so I can go back and rest. It was clear that the martial king did not care much about his opponent. In an instant, through the bandages, Faceless's eyes gleamed coldly. Then, the corners of his lips rose. I agree with that sentiment as well, so let's start. At that moment, the elders of the Baektion family turned and shouted, the duel for the tribe's throne is beginning. Everyone, back up. Boom, boom, boom. The war bell rang out as if someone had been waiting. The members of the One-Horned tribe began to retreat to secure space for the duel. Elder brother, I was wondering about something. What? Everyone had retreated to leave the two in an empty space. Faceless smiled as he stretched before their fight. The martial king had an annoyed expression as if he would rather be anywhere else but where he was. Unfazed by the martial king's expression and with a cold smile still on his face, Faceless continued speaking calmly, in my entire life, I never thought that I would be able to stand in this position. The martial king didn't reply. In other words, to me, you are the sky. My family considered me quite talented, and the adults had high expectations of me. I could have seen you as a rival like my brethren, but you were as bright as the sun. Standing next to you was enough for me. And, behind his bandages, Faceless's eyes curved. It was the same thing for Son as well. Son was the nickname that the spear god Flank called the sword god. The sword god was the first disciple that the martial king had taken under his wing, hoping to awaken the yin sword. However, Son was an ex-disciple now. That guy was completely intoxicated with your dazzling presence, and he always stated that he wanted to be just like you. I was the one who advised him to learn martial arts, but it was your path that he pursued. In the end, you still cast him off. Faceless's eyes shone brightly, contrasting against his ghastliness. It wasn't just me and Son. Most of the guys who pursued martial arts in Cheonwado were like us. There were those who looked up to and admired you, those who were frustrated by your existence. You left a very strong impression in more hearts than you think. The martial king frowned. He had planned to calmly listen to what Faceless had to say since those might be his last words, but he soon grew annoyed at the nonsense Faceless was spewing. The Martial King leaned on one leg and cocked his head. So, what are you getting at? Of course, you're always the same. In an instant, Faceless' eyes gleamed with a dark green color. My point is simple. You have a huge following that is eager to see you. Open hollow corner bracket husband, back away. The psychic medium cried out in a hurry as if she had discovered something, but Faceless had already started clapping loudly. The Martial King sensed all the bandages around Faceless's body loosen. Bam! The Martial King's world was instantly thrown into chaos. By the time he regained his bearings, the Martial King realized that he was no longer in the One-Horned Tribe's training grounds. He was in a world where everything was gray. All he could see were hills crowding densely along the endless horizon. Flank now stood where Faceless had been. Furthermore, he looked completely different. His body was large, with copper-colored muscles that weren't inferior to Fante's. In his right hand, he held a black spear about 3 meters long, and in his left hand was a spear of about 1.5 meters long. This was what Flank had looked like at his peak when he had still been the spear god. Even within the tribe, he had no equal other than the Martial King and the head elder. Flank had returned to his former self, the one who had helped Cheongwado become the top clan. For the first time, the Martial King's eyes, which had only shown signs of being annoyed, calmly settled. I didn't notice it at all. It was no small matter that the Martial King couldn't see through Faceless's plans. Although the Martial King appeared surly and indifferent to the duel, he had in fact concentrated with all his senses on Faceless. The psychic medium had done the same thing as well. As she maintained the village's barrier from the spirit pond, at the same time, the psychic medium closely monitored the sentiments of the village and all the tribe members. She particularly made sure to keep an eye out on those who might have a grudge against the Martial King. Furthermore, her eyes could not easily be avoided. Although she hadn't reached the level of the 1,000 eyes that Alpharaon possessed, she could confidently state that she knew almost everything that occurred in the tower. In fact, the psychic medium had witnessed Faceless secretly contacting several elders in the tribe, including those of the Baektion family. However, his actions were not proof that he was stirring up a rebellion, so she left it alone. Furthermore, she closely monitored Faceless up to the time of the duel, and she even checked to see if he had a dangerous object on him. And yet, even with all this surveillance, Faceless had easily dragged the Martial King to another place. Faceless had not used magic since the barriers of the village forced visitors to release magical spells that might harm the tribe members. In other words, Faceless had achieved this feat with the skills he had learned and the powers he had acquired. Regardless, no matter what method he used, one thing was certain: this was most likely the trap that led to the prophecy of the Martial King's death. Is this an illusory barrier? The Martial King asked, looking at the gray world that surrounded him. There was no sign of concern on his face. Although it was a great feat to achieve this while avoiding the psychic medium's eyes, the Martial King had already suffered through many traps during his lifetime. Faceless, or rather, the spear god, nodded with a confident smile. It's similar. Do you know of the otherworld gods? Vaguely. The Black Prince borrowed some of their power after coming across them by accident. The Black Prince. At that moment, a black mist rose next to the spear god and took on the form of a human. It's been a while, Martial King. He was one of the 9 kings and the head of the Dodd Brethren. He laughed happily. However, his eyes glittered fiercely, as if he would swallow the Martial King whole at any moment. The Martial King looked ready to snort in exasperation at any moment. Is everything all right with your nose? Yes, but now that you mention it, the only complex I've ever had was about my relatively flat nose, but thanks to you, I got a reason to raise it in the air. I always wanted to thank you. I never thought that an opportunity like this would come by. Ha ha ha. The Black Prince burst out laughing, clearly enjoying the moment. How could he not be overjoyed? He had finally obtained the chance to get back at the Martial King, who had stomped on his pride in the past. The spies who infiltrated the cave of Yannick weren't only supposed to dig up blood-tear stones but also to contact the beings located deeper below. The real goal was to go to the demonic sea through the Central Bureau, to meet the kings that resided in the demonic sea, and to borrow their powers. The Black Prince didn't think that the pool of players available to him would help him take control of the tower, and he realized that he wouldn't be able to deal with Alpharaon and the transcendent beings in the heavenly world. As a result, he decided to borrow other powers. His decision had been the right one, and as a result, he managed to meet the rabbit, one of the kings of the demonic sea. He obtained the powers that he wanted, one of which was the illusory barrier. Using the blood essence from the demonic sea as a foundation, the Black Prince could build an illusory barrier that marked out an illusory world within a designated area. He was creating his own holy territory within the physical world. And also, the illusory world was Faceless's holy territory. Although the Black Prince had obtained the power, he didn't use it because he decided that it would be more efficient for Faceless to do it. His reason was simple: the others of partnered would also feel the same way. SS is a black mist like the one that the Black Prince had appeared out of bloomed and encircled the martial king. The black mist slowly took the form of humans, who drew their weapons and pointed them at the martial king. Each of the human forms exuded a strong killing intent. Some of them were not inferior to the spear god or the Black Prince. There were 99 of them at first, but when the 100th mist bloomed between the spear god and the Black Prince, the sword god appeared. With the 4 swords of his past life floating in the air, the sword god opened his eyes. Open hollow corner bracket. Do you like the stage we set for you, master? The sword god asked, raising his voice and using a tone that harkened back to his days as an ignorant disciple. HMPH. The martial king could help chuckling in exasperation as he looked at the faces in front of him, including the sword god, spear god, and Black Prince. All the faces were all familiar. At one point in time, he had defeated them. They all harbored a deep resentment towards the martial king. How the hell did you assemble such a pile of trash? I must say, you're very talented. Open hollow corner bracket. It wasn't too difficult. When I stated that I would fight against Master, everyone offered to help of their own accord. Some even opened their chests and pulled out their own hearts. All the beings that appeared in the illusory world were the strongest ones that the sword god had absorbed through his cannibal skill. Open hollow corner bracket. I'm confident that this will be a fun game for Master as well. Do you want to know something? Open hollow corner bracket. Yes. Don't you know that no matter how much dust you collect, once someone blows on it, it all disappears? At the martial king's arrogant remark, the spirits all frowned at once. However, the sword god was quiet and unperturbed. Open hollow corner bracket. I know. You know, yet you still did this. Open hollow corner bracket. Of course, you know that it won't end with just this, right? The sword god slowly raised his right arm. At that moment, the bracelet around his wrist unwound and took on the shape of a spear. It was the divine weapon that the sword god had once called Gingnur. The sword god took hold of Gingnur and stabbed it into the ground. Gingnur has been activated. Gingnur was known as the divine weapon used by Odin, the supreme god of the godly society Asgard. It was not limited to divine retribution or thunder. Otherwise, the sword god wouldn't have loved and valued it so much. Gingnur's true power was that it enforced the laws of Asgard in the lower world. The illusory world has received a new quality. The law of causality has been received. The law of causality has been received. The rank of the illusory world has been forcefully increased. The rank of the illusory world has been forcefully increased. The illusory world has created a connection to the heavenly world, and less than Asgard greater than is exerting direct influence. Boom. As the illusory world trembled wildly, it began to fill with divine power. Heimdall, a god of less than Asgard greater than, has designated the player flank as an apostle. Heimdall is descending. Balder, a god of less than Asgard greater than, has designated the player Sokndal as an apostle. Balder is descending. Once all 100 spirits were designated as apostles, the gods of Asgard borrowed their bodies and descended into the illusory world one after another. Amid the countless flickering effects lit up the illusory world, the sword god said coldly to the martial king, open hollow corner bracket master. You will not make it out of here alive. Thor, a god of less than Asgard greater than, has designated the player Son as an apostle. Thor is descending. Crack, crack, crackle. The sword god's body started flashing and crackling with Thor's yellow lightning. The godly society less than Asgard greater than has established a great holy territory. I don't recall having significant contact with most of you, right? The martial king looked at the gods with an exasperated expression. There were hundreds of them. The situation was bordering on the surreal. The gods must have used up a considerable number of laws of causality to create a great holy territory in the lower world. It would have taken the godly society at least a few hundred years to save up. Moreover, this was all just to assassinate the martial king. The martial king was left speechless, and all he could do was scoff. However, the gods of Asgard were all serious. Open hollow corner bracket martial king, Nyu. The leader of Asgard. Ever since Odin fell asleep, Thor borrowed the sword god's body to speak. Open hollow corner bracket. Our society has no specific grievance against you. You are a descendant of the great Xiaohao Jintian and a talented entity in your own right. Although you possess the power to contend against the gods in the heavens, you have accepted your limitations as a mortal and understood your level. You have correctly chosen to stay in the lower world. Mortal. Limitations. Level. The martial king's eyes narrowed. However, Thor continued speaking loudly, adding greater energy into his voice without acknowledging or caring about the martial king's change of expression. Open hollow corner bracket. However, this does not mean that you are free from wrongdoing. ###. You have allowed the great sinner, the one you call Cain, to run wild. Your crime is considerable since you allowed this to happen. The godly society of Asgard holds you accountable. It was only then that the martial king understood the circumstances of this sudden attack. He smirked and chuckled. He did not know what had happened between his disciple and the godly society, but he understood that the godly society was focusing their anger on him after Yi and Wu slapped them around. Ah, damn it, I've really been away from the game for too long. How did my presence become so insignificant during my long break? I'm being dragged into a fight like a third-rate character who's riding on the coattails of his talented disciple. The martial king still took pride in being an active martial artist, and the implication of Thor's words was humiliating. The fact that he'd been taken as a hostage to lure his disciple fueled his anger. The martial king cocked his head in a more disrespectful manner. As the martial king was fuming, Thor continued to speak, using vocabulary that grew increasingly more complex, his tone stern and lecturing. However, the martial king had already stopped listening. To him, Thor was just like a barking dog. Hey, the martial king cut Thor off. Open hollow corner bracket. What? Are you done barking? Open hollow corner bracket. How could you use such vulgar? Anyway, shut that mouth of yours, and let's get started. Bam! Thinking that he had endured enough, the martial king stamped hard on the ground. With the instincts of a warrior, Thor quickly moved back and applied more power to his lightning bolt. Since Thor was borrowing the sword god's body, the sword god's consciousness quickly reacted to Thor's shout and shot out the 4 swords in the air. Boom, 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 boom. Lightning wrapped around each sword, which displayed its mighty power. The sword god's attack was something that even most gods were reluctant to face. Pew, pew. As if he were chasing away a flying insect, the martial king gently waved his hand and knocked down the incoming strikes. Then, he suddenly appeared right in front of Thor. Flinch. Thor was startled. He never expected that the martial king would move so quickly and was startled. However, Thor's reflexes soon kicked in, and he threw out a punch, condensing his energy in his fist and exploding it out. The blast shook the great holy territory. Whoosh, swoosh. However, with great ease, the martial king maneuvered through the explosions, grabbed Thor's wrist, and pulled him in. Like a howling wild beast, Thor's energy rumbled and growled as it climbed up the martial king's back. However, the energy was not strong enough to break through barriers along the martial king's skin. Such power! Infuriated that the martial king would dare compete with him in strength, Thor tried to set the martial king straight, but when he found himself being dragged away, Thor's eyes widened. How could the martial king contend with him so easily? He was one of the strongest warriors in the heavenly world. Thor's thoughts were interrupted by a strong shock in his stomach. Open hollow corner bracket. Oof. The martial king had swung his knee and connected with Thor's solar plexus. Thor felt such excruciating pain that he wondered if his spirit had been permanently damaged. As Thor's mind went blank. That sounded good. Whoosh. Martial king chuckled as he twisted Thor's wrist back and attacked all of his vulnerable points. Philtrum, solar plexus, and the lower part of the abdomen. Now, let's sound the drum. Bam, bam, bam. The martial king's movements were neat and efficient. However, their effects were deadly. Thor's flesh exploded, his bones shattered, and his legs flew off. The martial king demonstrated his proficiency in using a tremendous amount of divine power. Thor didn't counterattack since he couldn't even tell what was happening the entire time he was being beaten up. He was preoccupied with simply protecting his body, and the battle had revealed the huge difference in skill between the martial king and Thor. Open hollow corner bracket. Thor. Open hollow corner bracket. You bastard. How dare you? The other gods could no longer stand still and observe. They rushed towards the martial king in a single file. Bang. Still smiling, the martial king slammed his foot on the ground. A layer of earth rose from the shockwave, countless grains of sand scattering into the air. There was a tremendous amount of force compressed into those small grains of sand, making them as dangerous as a formidable weapon. Many of the attacking gods succumbed and exploded from the bombardment. The Martial King reached out and gripped Thor's face. He could see Thor's wet eyes filled with astonishment between his fingers. Crack! The Martial King didn't want to hear what he had to say, and he exerted strength and smashed Thor's head into pieces. Bits of flesh dripped to the ground. The Martial King was facing an enemy who had descended into the Sword God, but even though the Martial King had taught and nurtured the Sword God as a disciple, he did not hesitate at all. Even after defeating Thor, the Martial King still had a cold expression. The aura and energy he exuded were so bloody that the remaining gods were frozen stiff. They could not even bring themselves to move forward. The Martial King's gaze turned to a different direction, a faraway hill. Pew! Bright yellow condensed energy gathered, and Thor appeared once more. Thor's complexion was a little paler than before, but he looked relatively intact. How is your mouth? Are you still going to run it? Thor kept his mouth shut after the Martial King spoke with a cold smile. The other gods that had exploded and reappeared were also silent, shocked that a mortal could possess such an overwhelming ability. A monster. Only then did Thor realize what kind of being he had messed with. Since the Martial King was Yin Wu's master, Thor had planned to use him to oppress Yin Wu. However, Thor soon realized that he had made a grave mistake. He had ignored the Martial King simply because he was a mortal residing in the lower world. Thor clenched his jaw. He couldn't retreat, and unlike Yin Wu, the Martial King was alone. On the other hand, Thor's allies were overwhelming in number, and inside the Great Holy Territory, the descended gods could revive as many times as they wanted. In the end, whoever lost would be the one who collapsed from exhaustion. Such an existence must be eliminated. If the Martial King is already this strong now, if he achieves exuviation or transcendence, we will have no place to stand. Once he sorted out his thoughts, Thor slowly took out Mjolnir and rushed towards the Martial King. A thunderbolt that Thor had set to its maximum grew high in the sky. Though he had been careless before, this time around, Thor would not take anything for granted. If this doesn't work, then I'll use that as well. From now on, the Martial King was now the gods' common enemy. Wish. While hundreds of powers were poured out towards the Martial King. Vivasvat, that bastard, why isn't he coming? He acts so full of himself all the time, but whenever I need him, he's nowhere to be found. So useless. Even though the situation had reached a boiling point, the Martial King thought about Alpharon's glaring absence. However, he immediately pushed aside his thoughts and clenched his fists. All right, let's do this. I've always wanted to do some god killing, too, you know. Bam! After a great force that shook the Great Holy Territory to the point of collapse. As the Martial King dealt with Thor and Mjolnir, Heimdall Spear God approached the Martial King from his blind spot and stabbed a spear deep in the Martial King's left calf. The Hydra's poison is spreading rapidly. The curse of Gaia is taking effect. As soon as the Martial King was trapped in the illusory world, the village was thrown into chaos. Huh, what is this? What did they do to the duel for the throne? The tribe members had been ready to enjoy the duel with a light heart, and now, they were filled with surprise. A huge, dome-shaped barrier had appeared over the arena, and even though the head elder and the other elders swung their weapons on the barrier with all their might, the barrier only absorbed the energy of their attacks. No one could see what was happening inside, so they had no idea what was going on. Even Faceless's supporters, like the Bakshin family, grew frustrated as they frantically ran around, trying to figure out what was going on. Bakshin family head. The head elder shouted roughly as he stepped forward. All the tribe members stared at the head of the Bakshin family, whose complexion had turned ghastly pale. You're going to have to explain what the hell is going on. I believed what Flank was saying. The head of the Bakshin family hastily tried to come up with an excuse. The duel for the throne was a sacred tradition. It was unthinkable to sully it. Even the head of a large family would not avoid severe punishment. Even a great family's head was nothing compared to the Martial King. If the head elder and the other tribesmen blamed him for what just happened, he would not escape great punishment. However, the head of the Bakshin family did not have a chance to speak further. At that moment, bam, 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 explosions resounded at the outskirts of the village, and 4 pillars of fire soared up to the sky. As the barriers protecting the village and the defensive systems shattered, everyone felt the cycle of chi, which had smoothly circulated within the village, grow twisted. Fant, I know, hurry, Adora hurriedly called out to Fant before leaving her seat. They did not say much to each other, but the two already knew what the other was going to do. Fant made his way towards the outskirts of the forest, where the enemies were infiltrating them. Adora headed for the spirit pond where the psychic medium was. The fact that the barrier had suddenly broken meant that someone had covered the psychic medium's eyes. Mother is in danger. Adora held divine evil tightly and cast magic spells with all her might. What is this? When Anastasia sought her urgently, Frisia thought that Anastasia was just being annoying. Recently, she had been growing busier. Along with the world of the tower, where she did most of her business, there were many disturbances and conflicts taking place throughout the universe and other dimensions. The causes of these disturbances and conflicts were different, but the biggest culprit was the reorganization of the entire universe around the world of the tower. Frisia had been summoned while conducting an investigation on the reason for the reorganization. If Anastasia weren't a major shareholder of By the Table and a close friend, Frisia would not have come. A single line in Anastasia's letter asking her to come had convinced Frisia, I found Kronos. Frisia knew right away that Anastasia was telling the truth. Open hollow corner bracket. It's good to see that you're doing well, like Popo. I feel at ease. Are you really Kronos? Frisia's eyes fluttered behind her wooden mask. Open hollow corner bracket. Who else could it be? Ah, Frisia briefly exclaimed out loud before she crumpled to the floor and burst into tears. Long after Rhea had given up her divinity to search for Kronos, he had finally come back. Kronos had also told her that Frisia's investment, Yi and Wu, was his and Ray's son. Frisia could not help feeling a rush of emotion. They conversed for a while. Are you talking about Adamantine Nova? Open hollow corner bracket. Yeah. I think I have to remake Scythe. I need as much Adamantine Nova as possible. Will there be any issues? Kronos did not miss the embarrassment that flashed across Frisia's eyes. Frisia hesitated instead of giving a quick answer. It was a completely different expression that one would expect from the person who led By the Table. After a gentle sigh, she answered, Adamantine Nova's main materials, like blood tear stones, are very difficult to find in the tower and even in other dimensions in the entire universe. Open hollow corner bracket. It's that special. There may be another reason, but from what I know, the lack of blood tear stones and adamantine is due to an organization buying everything that's put up for sale on the market. They also pay a high price. Kronos and Yi and Wu's eyes widened. It was true that adamantine was a precious ore, but it was still something that could not be easily handled since it could cause a serious injury and tremendous damage. Who was? Open hollow corner bracket. Which organization? At Kronos' question, Frisia's sigh deepened. It's the Sea of Time. Yi and Wu instinctively jumped up from his seat. Open hollow corner bracket. Hung. We have a problem. Yi and Wu's channel with his apostle suddenly opened. It was Doyle. Open hollow corner bracket. They made such a ruckus before. I'm not sure what Faceless and the Black Prince have been up to since. The Spring Queen, Waltz, listened to Troy's message as she watched the scene from afar. She was looking at the village of the One-Horned Tribe. She wished for the village's destruction several times a day, and finally, it was being destroyed with the help of a foreign being. Open hollow corner bracket. Please give us your order. For Waltz, the whole thing seemed too surreal. So, don't you want to see the Martial King die? Will you act or not? If not, I guess you'll just have to live your pitiful life the way it is. Ha ha ha. The words Faceless had said to her were still ringing in her ears. He had told her that he would kill the Martial King in front of the One-Horned Tribe members. Faceless also claimed that he would make the Martial King walk into a trap with his own 2 feet and that the tribe members would not be able to do anything about it. Furthermore, the Martial King would be entering an inescapable area, and there was no way that he would be able to come out alive. Of course, Waltz did not believe what Faceless said. The Martial King that she knew would not allow himself to succumb so easily. Otherwise, Waltz would have killed the Martial King by now. Alright, if you don't believe me, then watch us. Afterward, decide whether you want to join in or not. It's your choice. What do you have left? Pride. Do you need such a thing? Your mother already abandoned you, no. Before Faceless left, he offered Waltz and White Dragon the chance to observe the situation before deciding on their participation. Faceless stated that he would prove to them that his plan was foolproof. Waltz accepted Faceless's offer. She had nothing to lose. Arthea had already isolated White Dragon on the 76th floor as they took over control of the lower floors. White Dragon was constantly battling with the Fantasy Regiment and felt more besieged with each passing day. In such a dire situation, a gamble was necessary. And now, Faceless was proving that his words were not an exaggeration. Waltz realized that the time had finally come to take a risk. Open hollow corner bracket. Queen. Troy and her other followers stared at Waltz with burning gazes. Finally, Waltz slowly removed her invisibility magic and commanded her squadron, begin. Open hollow corner bracket we shall execute your order. Open hollow corner bracket we shall execute your order. White Dragon immediately started taking action. Huh, what's going on? Sasha, who had been drawing on paper with her crayons, stopped what she was doing and cocked her head at a sudden aftershock. She realized that something strange was happening in the village, so she ran to the window. Was it fireworks? She could see the sky light up brightly. Sasha recalled that it was the day for the duel for the throne. She heard that there would be a festival, and she had wanted to participate. However, she ended up playing alone at home because outsiders were not allowed to attend the festival. Sasha was told that she could go at dinner time when the event was over, and she was already planning to pick out an outfit later with Adora. However, the effects she saw did not seem to be a result of martial arts. Sasha was a quarter dragon, and her biological mother was a witch who had been blessed with mana. Thus, her sense and talent for magic were already developed. The phenomena she saw was definitely magic-based. In fact, they even exuded holy power. For a moment, Sasha grew pale. Her eyes trembled. She felt a dark foreboding. Goosebumps appeared all over her skin as little by little, the memories she'd almost forgotten began to rear their ugly heads. She grew strangely cold. "Be Brahm." Sasha called out for her maternal grandfather, but he wasn't home. If only he were here she would not feel so scared. Although Sasha smiled most of the time, she sometimes experienced traumatic episodes. Whenever this happened, Brahm would silently hug her, and without understanding why, Sasha would feel at ease. "I'm scared." Sasha looked around. She felt as if something invisible was approaching her. The house that had always felt cozy and peaceful now felt cold and gloomy, like a monster that might devour her at any moment. The aftershocks at the outskirts grew more intense as time went on. The ground rumbled loudly, and at some point, a hot gush of wind swept through the forest. Magic fields full of murderous intent started to appear here and there. Without realizing what she was doing, Sasha sat down, covering her ears with her hands and shutting her eyes tightly, thinking that this would stop the invisible monster from finding her. She desperately wanted whatever fearful thing that was outside to pass by and leave her alone. She had finally found a place to call her own, and it was a place where she had a lot of family and friends. She wanted to hold on to this peacefulness somehow. However, she was weak and thin, and there was nothing she could do. She could only tremble and suppress the sound of her breath. However, despite her best efforts, the invisible monster seemed to home in on her and arrive at her front door. Sasha recalled a fairy tale that Uncle Yian-Wu had told her long ago about three little pigs. A wolf disguised as the pigs, mother went to the pigs' house to catch and eat them. Sasha felt that she was one of those little pigs with the wolf outside the door. When the little pigs realized that the wolf had arrived, they had grown terrified. Who did they look for? Rumble. Bam. Mom. When there was an explosion near her, Sasha's panic and fear reached a climax. However, all of a sudden, Sasha felt a warm hug, stronger than Yian-Wu's and warmer than Brahm's. The hug was also soft and fragrant. It was a familiar hug that Sasha missed very much. She had not felt this touch and warmth in a long time. A hand gently caressed Sasha while telling her that everything would be fine. Mom. Sasha opened her eyes wide and raised her head. The soothing warmth disappeared. There was no one nearby. Sasha immediately turned her head to the bed where Ananta lay. Sasha was certain that she had felt Ananta's touch, but Ananta was still comatose, as usual. Was she mistaken? However, Sasha felt a warm wind blowing around Ananta. Moreover, the pocket watch by Ananta's bedside was vibrating violently. However, Sasha's thoughts were interrupted. Boom. Sasha. Mr. Fant. As he rushed to protect Sasha, Fante's expression changed. He had always told Sasha to call him brother or uncle, but she never listened. However, Sasha always called Adora sister. Of course, it was not the time to be concerned about such petty things, so Fant controlled his expression while making a mental note to resolve this matter later. We should get out of here first. What happened? I'll tell you the details later. Hurry up and get your mother. Damn it. Fant suddenly grabbed Sasha's hand and pulled her into his arms. Bam. The house exploded, throwing Fant and Sasha out. Fant tumbled on the ground as he held onto Sasha. He had raised his barriers at the last minute, but the explosion was so sudden and the impact so great that his body screamed in pain. Mister, are you okay? Mom. Fortunately, Sasha was unscathed. She remembered that Ananta was still in the house and lifted her head. Fortunately, Ananta and her bed looked intact despite the explosion, thanks to the protective magic that Brahm had put in place over his daughter and granddaughter. However, the explosion had shattered Brahm's protective measures, and there were strangers standing near Ananta. Is this the right person? The coordinates sent by the spy, Hyena, pointed to this location. The Spring Queen, Waltz, quietly nodded in response to Troy's response. Hyena was the code name of the spy that had given detailed instructions on the village layout, the arrangement of the tribe's forces, and the political situation of each tribal family within the one-horned tribe. Although their identity was unknown, Hyena clearly had a fairly high position in the tribe, considering the quality and quantity of the information they provided. Thanks to this, White Dragon completed their invasion very smoothly. At this moment, White Dragon's troops were advancing along the paths that Hyena had marked out, preparing to destroy the village. Waltz was sure that no matter how powerful the one-horned tribe was, they would not escape a major blow. It would be the worst damage that the one-horned tribe had ever experienced since their founding or the birth of the tower. However, Waltz personally despised Hyena. After all, Hyena had sold out their tribe due to his own resentment and greed. No, Hyena also provided information on people related to the Shadow King. If things go smoothly and we exert influence over the one-horned tribe, it won't be a bad idea to support Hyena as their next king. With cold eyes, Waltz reached out to Ananta. Waltz heard that Hyena had a very big grudge against Yin Wu. One of the conditions of her participation in this operation was to deal with tasks related to Yin Wu, which suited Waltz well. Rumble. However, before Waltz could lay a finger on Ananta, a red lightning bolt smashed down on her. Waltz quickly raised her defenses, stacking several layers of magic shields around herself. However, the blood-red lightning bolt crushed her shields and barriers before hitting the floor, its impact pushing Waltz back. There were deep grooves where she had stood. Crazy bitch, who are you thinking of touching? A frowning Fant appeared where Waltz had stood. Blood-colored lightning bolts leapt up and down along his skin, growling like beasts. His power was truly overwhelming. Waltz stared at Fant and the suffocating force that made her heart cramp with a stiff expression. His destructive power was considerable, and Waltz recognized its martial arts origin and skill, blood lightning. It was also called the blood lightning of justice, and it was the martial arts skill created by the head elder. How are you related to the head elder? What about that ancient fogey? To Fant, all the adults in the tribe were fogies. The martial king was the old fogey, while the head elder was the ancient fogey. I'm asking you a question. I am his one and only student. Enough. Waltz frowned. You're the head of White Dragon, right? I remember seeing you a few times. By the way, Fant bumped his fists together and increased the blood lightning to its maximum. It was bad enough that you set your dirty, half-blood feet in our village, but now, you've gone even further and tried to harm someone that I'm protecting. I'll tear you apart and kill you. Bam! After pushing off the floor, Fant pounced on Waltz. Queen, hey, how dare you? Two players who served under Waltz jumped in. You worthless fellows should know your place. SS's. The two were torn to shreds by the blade of Fante's hand. Nothing was left of their bodies. The blood lightning surrounding Fant was intense and destructive, tearing through everything it touched as though it were equipped with vicious, serrated teeth. Bang! Soon Fante's destroying mountain fist collided with Waltz's half-dragon palm. A plume of dust rose up as energy shaped like petals shot up while a blood-red lightning bolt pounded the ground. Did you call me a half-blood? Waltz glared menacingly at Fant as if his remarks hit a nerve. Seeing her reaction, Fant smirked and mockingly called out, yeah. Half-blood. You don't even have a horn, so if you're not a half-blood, what are you? A disabled idiot. Waltz raised her power to the maximum. The afterimages of her hand instantly filled the air as she tried to grab hold of Fant. Boom, boom, boom. Open hollow corner bracket Sesha, I'll try to buy some time for you, so get your mother and head out of here. Fante's voice rang in Sesha's ears. It wasn't just for the sake of arguing that Fant had provoked Waltz. He did it to draw her attention solely on him. Once the alarm magic had been triggered, Brahm would have immediately come, but he was nowhere to be found. Furthermore, Fant had a difficult time contacting Yin Wu. In order to keep the defenseless Sesha and Ananta safe, Fant had to make sure that they escaped to a safe place. Luckily, Sesha had a mini teleport scroll for emergencies just like this. Unfortunately, Sesha's legs were frozen in place. It seems that you're the Shadow King's nephew or daughter. You'll have to come along with this grandpa. Troy stood in front of Sesha as the corners of his mouth rose. He tried to put on a warm smile, like a friendly grandfather, but his actions only frightened Sesha even more. In fact, at that very moment, Troy was thinking, jackpot. If he could secure this child, he would be able to avenge all the humiliation he'd suffered at the hands of Yianwu and Arthea. Don't come near me. Boom, boom. Sesha cast all the magic spells that she learned so far, but her spells helplessly crumbled before they even reached Troy. Such a disobedient child. Cute, very cute. You seem to have some talent, so I might raise you as my disciple. Of course, I will have to erase everything in your head. Laughing viciously, Troy reached out for Sesha. Mom. Sesha instinctively shut her eyes. She needed another miracle to happen, like the time Yianwu saved her from Agaras. Right then. Boom. With a tearing sound, Troy's hand stopped before it could reach Sesha. Troy's shaky eyes looked down. A sword had pierced through his side and was now sticking out of his neck. Troy slowly turned his head. Get away from my daughter. Ananta growled with wide eyes. Open hollow corner bracket Ananta. At some point during her deep slumber, she heard a voice calling her name, a name she had long forgotten. Open hollow corner bracket Ananta, listen to my voice. At first, Ananta thought she wasn't hearing it correctly. Open hollow corner bracket please, Ananta. She thought she was hallucinating. She thought that she was being tormented by the deep feelings she had for him again. After all, he was no longer of this world. He had crossed a river, and he could never return. Because of that, although she longed for him, she also detested him. Open hollow corner bracket hey, stupid. Do you need to suffer so much heartache and trouble over someone like me? Knowing that he had already crossed a point of no return, she decided to disregard the voice. She tried to fall into a deeper sleep. She didn't want to be bothered anymore. Leave me alone in peace, she thought. Open hollow corner bracket do you recall the first time we met? However, the auditory hallucination continued. Open hollow corner bracket we fought each other like we were prepared to die at any moment. Afterwards, Valdebik would make us lemonade, and we would just drink and talk about how refreshing it was. The voice whispered memories that only she and the dead knew. Open hollow corner bracket but, to be honest, his lemonade was pretty bad, right? If she had hands and ears, she would cover her ears with her hands. Open hollow corner bracket and, remember that time close hollow corner bracket however open hollow corner bracket there was that one time when I was pickpocketed. I lost my money and while I was in shock, you calmly organized what I had to do. She could not stop herself from listening. Open hollow corner bracket at that moment, I thought you looked pretty cool. She enjoyed it too much. Open hollow corner bracket there were many moments like that. Even if you weren't part of my team, we often bumped into each other. Soon, we spent a lot of time just hanging out with one another. She loved it so much that she felt as if her heart would beat again. Open hollow corner bracket hey, tell me, honestly. I thought it was just a random coincidence that we met, but it wasn't random at all right? It was all planned, huh? The auditory hallucination's voice also teased her in a mischievous manner. Open hollow corner bracket this is why being a popular guy is hard. Although looking back on it now, I really enjoyed the time we spent together. It was a lot of fun. His warm voice seemed to melt her frozen heart. Open hollow corner bracket you were always honest with me. Each time, memories that she had buried at the back of her mind emerged, one by one. Open hollow corner bracket it would be great to go back to that time. If time were like a clockwork spring, I would wind it back to that time. As each memory appeared in her mind like a photograph, her feelings of longing started welling up. Open hollow corner bracket you probably feel the same that's probably why you haven't been able to wake up. Then, the hallucination said in a gloomy voice, open hollow corner bracket I understand. It was the same for me. I wanted time to pause and remain there forever. Those days were the most gruesome and hardest of days but they were also the most enjoyable. I didn't want to leave them. The voice comforted Ananta. But then open hollow corner bracket however, Ananta close hollow corner bracket the auditory hallucination was trying to help her wake up. Open hollow corner bracket time can never be turned back. It explained where they were in relation to time. Open hollow corner bracket it has already passed. No matter how much you run away from reality, and no matter how much you long for it, that time won't return. Each word pierced Ananta's heart. It hurt her so much that she wanted to scream. But no screams came out. Open hollow corner bracket let's bury all the days when we suffered. Isn't it just as important to create a happy and enjoyable future? The auditory hallucination's voice caressed her wounds to help them heal. Open hollow corner bracket we close hollow corner bracket. Unexpectedly, her pain eased little by little. Ananta started to see something. Open hollow corner bracket we have a daughter now, don't we? At that moment boom, Ananta felt as if the world was collapsing around her. When she lifted her head up, he was there. It was the face she'd seen in her dreams. Cha Jung-woo smiled as he looked at her. Open hollow corner bracket. How long will you stay asleep when your daughter is crying her heart out for you? Ananta was in her world of consciousness. Cha Jung-woo's spirit body had constantly beat on her consciousness to rouse her, and she finally responded to his voice. When Cha Jung-woo realized that Ananta had woken up, he teased her again. He had often done this when they climbed the tower together. Ananta's eyelids trembled as she recalled that time, her eyes involuntarily growing wet. However, Ananta smiled broadly instead of wiping her eyes. It was not like her to cry at such a time. She pouted and grunted out, "You're one to talk. Open hollow corner bracket. You're right. It's not the olden times when childrearing was the sole responsibility of the mother. Based on the standards of today's world, I'm a horrible dad, aren't I?" Cha Jung-woo slowly reached out to Ananta. Open hollow corner bracket. All those things that I didn't know about in the past, the things I took for granted, can you help me start over? From now on, I can do well. Ananta looked at Cha Jung-woo's hand quietly. She had desperately wanted to hold it before but couldn't. She was about to grab his hand, then she quickly pulled back. No. Open hollow corner bracket. Huh? For the first time, a look of embarrassment appeared on Cha Jung-woo's face. Ananta felt a sense of satisfaction. Wasn't I the one who waited anxiously for you all this time? Did you think I'd just shout hooray and grab your hand because you chose to return? Wake up. Open hollow corner bracket. Well then what should I do? Ananta had once missed his love and attention, but things were different now. Ananta was now dismissing him, and Cha Jung-woo was clinging to her. I wonder. Open hollow corner bracket. Ananta. As Cha Jung-woo sweated profusely, not knowing what to do, Ananta walked far ahead. Cha Jung-woo didn't dare grab her, so he scrambled around, unsure what to do. At that moment, Ananta's steps stopped for a moment. With a sulking expression, she glanced back. I'll think about it. Open hollow corner bracket. Then. Just when Cha Jung-woo was about to say something. Mom, a voice rang out. Ananta and Cha Jung-woo lifted their heads up at the same time. Both of their expressions grew stiff. Get away from my daughter. Open hollow corner bracket. Get away from my daughter. Ananta coldly shouted out as soon as she woke up. Perhaps because it had been many years since she'd fallen asleep, her body felt slow and creaky. Her dragon human mana, which had always overflowed with magic power, was now little more than a stream. Her muscles were weak and damaged, leaving her without much strength. If she opened her status window, it would probably look very bleak. There wasn't a single part of her body that didn't hurt. Ananta had picked up a sword randomly from the ground and plunged it into Troy, but even doing this was difficult. However, Ananta didn't care about her condition. She was full of anger. Her daughter. They were trying to harm her daughter. How dare they? Although Sesha was not her biological daughter, she was the daughter of Ananta's heart. Ananta loved Sesha more than anyone in the world, and she would not allow anyone to harm her. When she thought of how she continued to sleep as her child was in danger, Ananta detested her own inaction. Didn't this mean she wasn't qualified to be the child's mother? Cha Jung-woo thought the same thing about himself. He had become a father whose existence his daughter didn't know. Even though he couldn't hug Sesha or stroke her head, Jung-woo would not let his poor child get hurt again. It would be different from now on. If he couldn't become a father and protect his daughter, if he couldn't protect his family, how could he be called someone's dad? The two of them had shouted at the same time, with one heart and one mouth. Mom, Dad. Sesha's eyes widened when she saw the mother she'd always hoped would wake up in front of her. She was doubly surprised to see the figure behind Ananta. It was a person who resembled Uncle Yeon-woo but had warm eyes. He had shining armor and pure white wings. He was someone who was trustworthy and dependable, someone who would provide safety for her. Sesha instantly recognized him. Mom, Dad. Smiling and crying, Sesha called out to the two of them. Her trauma disappeared as if it had never existed. Daughter, wait a minute. Mommy will save you. Open hollow corner bracket. Daughter, wait a minute. Daddy will save you. Ananta and Cha Jung-woo spoke at the same time with the same tone, looking at Sesha with love and affection. How dare you touch my daughter? Open hollow corner bracket. How dare you touch my daughter? When Ananta lifted her head and looked at her enemies, her demeanor changed. Her eyes shone fiercely. I will make you regret your actions. Open hollow corner bracket. I will make you regret your actions. Bam! The two moved at the same time with the same actions. Cha Jung-woo, who was within Ananta, helped her make up for her physical weakness and depleted magic power. There was no awkwardness in their movement. At one time, they had been the last two dragon humans in the world of the tower, and it was possible for them to move with one mind and one will. Shit, damn it. With his chest torn open, Troy quickly retreated, bleeding profusely. He had luckily turned before the surprise attack and prevented his heart from being stabbed, but his current condition was close to death. However, Ananta would not let him go. Hyena had claimed that Ananta was in a vegetative state. Did they hide that she had awakened? Regardless, Troy understood that it was necessary to escape first. However, Ananta was too fast. Her dragon wings, which had suddenly appeared on her back, angrily flapped, and the sword that she held radiated a chilling light. It's like the sky wings and wave of light. As soon as Troy remembered Heaven Wing, whom he had once seen, his world turned upside down. He immediately lost consciousness after being blinded by a flash of white light. This was the last thought of the great villain called Hawkeye. He wielded great power and did whatever he wanted, as evidenced by his constantly changing affiliations from Red Dragon to Black Dragon and finally, to White Dragon. Bang! The beam of light from Ananta's sword spread like a spider's web in all directions, sweeping away all their enemies. SS's. A gust of wind blew. Ananta glared at the survivors, surrounded by embers and black ashes fluttering in the air, flashing her draconic eyes at the center of the windstorm. The expressions of the White Dragon players and rankers stiffened. Warnings blared in their minds. They had offended someone they should not have. What is this? How? It was an aura that was very familiar to them, since they had received orders from the Summer Queen while working in Red Dragon, and it was something they did not want to recall: dragon fear. It was the unique aura of the dragon species that stimulated the primal fear ingrained in all the species of the world. The air sizzled. The players felt short of breath and suffocated. With expressions of disbelief, they could not say any words. The world stood still. Furthermore, behind Ananta, who had taken control of the battlefield, there was another figure. It was Heaven Wing Cha Jung-woo's spirit. You all are ready. Open hollow corner bracket. You all are ready. Close hollow corner bracket. To die, right. Open hollow corner bracket. To die, right. The second hand of the pocket watch that hung around Ananta's neck spun wildly as if indicating the remaining lifespan of the intruders. Tick, tick. Let's finish as soon as possible. Although Ananta completely overwhelmed her enemies, she didn't grow overconfident. Because Walpurgisnacht had hunted her down for such a long time, she'd learned to dissect her situation soberly and rationally. As she saw it, in her current condition, it would be impossible for her to engage in a long, drawn-out fight. No matter how much Cha Jung-woo's spirit spread his sky wings, which amplified her magic power, there were limits to this method. Moreover, Cha Jung-woo's spirit body was not complete, and as time passed, the risk that his existence, which hadn't even been fully restored, might scatter. Ananta made it clear that she wanted to take swift action, and Cha Jung-woo replied in the affirmative, raising and spreading his sky wings. The dragon fear exuded by the two dragon humans intensified, backed by a powerful force. They quickly bounded towards their enemies, who were frozen in place. White Dragon was an offshoot of Red Dragon, which the Summer Queen had ruled, and they were vulnerable against the aura of a dragon. Whoosh! Whenever Ananta swung her sword, wave of light exploded out from her blade. At one time, Heavenwing had reigned over various rankers and the 8 clans with his numbered skill. The skill erased the clan members of White Dragon one by one. Damn it! How can that bitch use Heavenwing's skill? We need to retreat. Many of the clan members backed away. They had only wanted to take advantage of a chance to counterattack and not be pointlessly swept away like the ashes of a roaring fire. You idiots, what are you all doing? We need to stop her no matter what. If you retreat, we're all done for. Fight, do whatever you can. Unlike the clan members, White Dragon's leaders wanted to stop Ananta at all costs. They instinctively knew that if they missed this chance to attack, there would be no second chance. It was only a matter of time before the situation in the One-Horned Tribe's village reached Arthia's ears. White Dragon's leaders knew it would be over once reinforcements arrived, so they had to somehow get rid of or capture Ananta. Fortunately, some of the rankers with scanning abilities noticed that Ananta's internal state didn't match her outer appearance. Her reserve of magic power was very low, so they clenched their teeth and redoubled their efforts to catch her. The war with White Dragon began. Damn it! Suspending her clash with Fant, Waltz frowned when she realized that things were not going her way. Despite her personal grudge against the One-Horned Tribe, she was not a fool who would misjudge the flow of combat. If she were that foolhardy, Arthea and the fantasy regiment's constant attacks would have already destroyed her and the clan 100 times over. She had learned from her mother, the Summer Queen, to be cold-blooded and analytical enough to quickly draw the right conclusions. She had long ago determined that the attack on the one-horned tribe would end in failure, but she joined in order to secure Ananta and Sesha. Although she was engaged in battle with Fant and his blood lightning, she had decided not to retreat so that she could buy time for her side to conclude their operation. However, Waltz never thought that Ananta would wake up. Waltz did not know how Ananta did it. She was even freely using Sky Wing and Wave of Light. Ananta's overall physical condition did not seem very good since her complexion was pale and her breath was ragged. However, Ananta firmly held her ground, and it seemed more and more unlikely that the situation would change. However, even if Waltz wanted to use her full force. Rumble, bang, Fant rained down blood lightning after blood lightning as if mocking her silly thoughts. The wall of blood thunder, which was the constant barrage of blood lightning, was known to split and crush everything it touched, and it was about to reach Waltz. In an instant, flower petals made of high-level energy bloomed around Waltz's body. A multitude of pale pink afterimages appeared. Waltz utilized 9-step transformation, creating afterimages and clones with every 9 steps, to avoid Fante's blood lightning of justice. However, the power of the blood lightning exploded on the ground and spread in all directions, causing a chain of explosions. 9 of Waltz's clones disappeared in an instant. Fant rushed through the stinging dust and black ashes in the air like an angry bull and grabbed Waltz's slender body. Realizing that she had made a mistake and left herself open, Waltz quickly tried to escape Fante's grasp. She knew better than anyone that she had no chance of winning if she fought Fant using brute strength. Waltz collected energy in the palms of her hands and beat Fante's back. Bam! Arg! Fant ignored the attacks raining on his back which were strong enough to break his spine. He hung onto Waltz and rammed her into a nearby tree, a sacred one that had stood tall in the village for hundreds of years. The sacred tree snapped from the force and fell to the ground. Waltz lost her breath, and the energy that she had gathered instantly released. Fant did not miss this opportunity. He put strength into his arms to completely crush Waltz's waist and ribs. He did not even have time to utilize blood lightning. Crack, crack, Waltz felt the strange and excruciating feeling of bones and organs being crushed inside her body. She could not even scream, and she did not know if it was because her vocal cords had been snapped or if her lungs could not expand. This sudden muteness gave her tremendous psychological pain. She could feel herself passing out. No, Waltz clenched her jaw. When that didn't work, she violently bit her tongue. The smell of blood spread in her mouth, and she was in so much pain that she thought she had bitten through her tongue. However, this drastic action helped her regain her consciousness. How much I've sacrificed to get to where I am. She was biting down so hard that her jaw started to crack. Mom, Dad, Waltz could not forget. One by one, the images of her parents, who raised her in a slum, started popping into her mind. She recalled how no one would approach her because they considered her too dirty. She remembered how she could not even give her dead parents a proper burial. She had been too consumed with escaping the one-horned tribe members chasing her. And now, she couldn't even take the slightest bit of revenge on them. She couldn't allow herself to fall so easily. Apart from her personal grievances, Waltz also wanted to maintain the Summer Queen's dying wish. Although Waltz wasn't certain that her mother had left her an inheritance, Waltz was still thankful to the Summer Queen for giving her a new lease on life. She couldn't throw her life away like this. Waltz gave up struggling against Fante's crushing force and focused solely on squeezing out her last drops of energy to create a mana circle. She didn't care if she ruined her physical body. Waltz just needed a handful of magic power. Flash! A blinding blue light rose like a spear toward Waltz's eyes. It was exploding light, and Waltz poured all her life force into a handful of her remaining magic power to amplify it, like the last flickering moments of a candle's flame before it disappeared. For a brief moment, her internal strength increased explosively. Waltz did not care if her previously uninjured areas were damaged. She was dead set on escaping Fant, who was still holding onto her tightly. Whoosh! A powerful magic field formed and rose from the two's struggle. The magic field crackled as it started growing larger. Soon, Waltz began to gain the upper hand. From the start, Waltz had a slight martial arts advantage over Fant. Moreover, once she decided to consume her life force, Fant couldn't keep up. You fucking bitch! Fant screamed in annoyance. With an expressionless face, Waltz threw Fant off. She would only be able to take Ananta and Sesha with her if she could get rid of the nuisance in front of her. She would recoup and mend her body later. However, since she used exploding light, she only had a year or two of life left, but it was enough time to fulfill her revenge. The One-Horn tribe had a forbidden 10-dan martial arts skill which had overwhelming destructive power, even as it put the user's life in danger. There was a chance that Fant would use this skill, but Waltz had already used exploding light, so there was no turning back. Mother's dying wish. Right now, only the thought of avenging the Summer Queen remained in Waltz's mind. Bam! Fant vomited blood as he tumbled to the ground. In a flash, Waltz flew towards Sesha. Ananta noticed her movements and quickly blocked Waltz's path using sky wings. I'll have to kill you first. Get away from me, you bitch. Just when the two women were about to attack each other. Rumble. Suddenly, darkness fell from the sky like torrential rain. Waltz immediately realized that it was an attack aimed at her, and she pulled back. At first, she'd planned to parry the attack, but the incoming force was stronger than she had anticipated. Boom! As Waltz expected, as soon as the black darkness exploded on the ground, it melted everything it touched. Waltz couldn't see the bottom of the holes that the darkness created. It was as if they were abysses. It was a terrifying sight, and Waltz looked up to see where the darkness had come from. Ananta also hurriedly raised her head. They soon saw the source of the attack, Yin Wu, who was riding his bone dragon. Open hollow corner bracket hung. For a moment, Ananta stood stunned and wide-eyed when she saw the figure who looked like Jungwoo but with a completely different aura. Then, once she heard Cha Jungwoo's words, she clenched her fist. Ananta had been listening to Sesha from time to time in her sleep. Yin Wu had saved her and her daughter. He was also the person who brought Cha Jungwoo back. She felt a sudden sense of relief. On the other hand, Waltz's expression stiffened. Waltz recognized the bone dragon that Yin Wu was standing on. It was the Summer Queen, the remains of her deceased mother. Wasn't it too pitiful that her mother couldn't even sleep comfortably after closing her eyes? Waltz grew angry at Yin Wu's vicious act. Unconcerned about Waltz's thoughts, Yin Wu descended from the dragon with his arms crossed. Domain Declaration. As the shadows spread across the ground, Yin Wu's legion of undead souls rose one by one. The domain, Bina, has been declared. Pluto had gone to Olympus along with Athena, and the ghost giants had been mobilized to restore Tartarus, so Yin Wu's forces were mainly made up of Bufast's undead. However, this legion alone already boasted a considerable amount of power, and White Dragon quickly fell into chaos. They had already suffered a lot of damage from Ananta's wave of light attacks, and they couldn't avoid further injuries from this. Moreover, the White Dragon members found it difficult to shake off the vines that had risen from the shadows and wrapped around their ankles and limbs. The shadow was so swampy that it even seemed to suck their legs in. Damn it. Arg. Magic. My magic doesn't work. High above, Bufast's Inferno sight looked down at everyone, forming a large barrier over a huge area. As long as they were inside, it was impossible for the members of White Dragon to escape. Any attempts to use magic would instantly be cancelled, and there was nothing else to do but panic. Bufast had not only absorbed the knowledge of the tower but also the Emerald Tablet, and by now, his magic ability level was so high that no player could fathom it. They were already like rats trapped in a pool of poison. Waltz clenched her jaw. As soon as Yin Wu had revealed himself, she knew that everything was over. However, she tried to stubbornly refuse this reality and tried one last counterattack. SS's. All of a sudden, the bone dragon suddenly swung its wings and flew towards Waltz at a high speed. Waltz's expression stiffened, unsure what the bone dragon would do. As Waltz gathered magic power in her fist, the bone dragon suddenly became engulfed in light as it polymorphed. Once she saw the face of the polymorphed bone dragon, Waltz's expression stiffened even more. She never thought she would see it again. Mother. Waltz was dumbstruck. She couldn't understand what was going on. Extending her hand, the Summer Queen sent out a flurry of attacks towards Waltz without hesitation. The strongest flame-based magic, Hellfire, rushed towards Waltz. Whoosh! You're here. An exhausted Galliard watched Yin Wu land on the ground. His body was covered in injuries from dealing with the attackers, and he was pale at the thought that Sesha had been in danger. Yin Wu nodded solemnly. Galliard explained the situation in a voice filled with guilt. As you can see, things aren't going too well. Thankfully, things have gotten easier now that you're here, but I still don't have the face to look at you. No, thank you for what you've done. Please rest. Yin Wu patted Galliard's shoulders and looked around. However, his expression was a lot tighter than usual. Although he had experienced many things in the tower, he had never been as angry as he was now. This was the only place in the tower that he had fond memories of. Even though most of those memories were of him getting beaten up, it was the place where he had met his gruff but caring teacher and had accepted Sesha and the sick Ananta-like family. It was a place he could call home, since home didn't even exist on Earth anymore. He had never imagined it would end up in this state. When he had first received Doyle's message, he hadn't been too concerned. But when he heard the rest of the news, there was no way he could stay still. We have sensed movement from the guys that have been quiet all this time. Now, all of them are acting strangely. The Chest of Souls, the Dodd Brethren, and even White Dragon, they're all moving in a very discreet manner, so it's hard to tell, but it seems like they have some connections inside the One-Horn tribe. The fact that the One-Horn tribe had a traitor wasn't something that could be easily glossed over. Immediately after Doyle contacted Yin Wu, another apostle, Athena, contacted him. "Uncle, Asgard is making strange moves. There are rumors spreading fast that they've cut off all communication in the heavenly world and closed off their society. I'm in the process of confirming it, but please be careful nonetheless." Both Faceless and Asgard were acting out. Was this a mere coincidence? Although they didn't seem to have any connection to each other, Yin Wu had a strong intuition that none of this was coincidental. If that gut feeling was right, he couldn't disregard this matter because the plan to assassinate the Martial King was more elaborate and greater in scale than anyone expected. Doyle said that he would take Laputa to the outer district. He had everything prepared, so all he needed was Yin Wu's approval. However, a thought occurred to Yin Wu, and he stopped Arthea from moving. "No, Arthea should fall back. There's something else you need to do." A clever apostle, Doyle instantly understood that Yin Wu had another plan up his sleeve, stabbing in the back. "What should we do?" "You can." Doyle and Arthea were now likely in the middle of carrying out Yin Wu's orders, like Athena. She was carefully watching the overall atmosphere of the heavenly world, and Yin Wu had given his permission to dispatch the soldiers if Asgard behaved strangely. Their allies had already said they would assist if the situation required it. The heavenly world was heavy with political tension due to Yin Wu's interference, but it wasn't the time to be concerned about it. As the heavenly world and the lower world both moved according to Yin Wu's orders, Yin Wu appeared in the village of the One-Horn tribe personally to declare his domain and command the army of death to sweep away the enemies. This was the army that had already battled against the crawling chaos, Mother Earth, and other divine beings. Even though White Dragon was strong according to the standards of the lower world, their strength was nothing compared to those of the transcendent beings. "Take care of everyone. Don't allow anyone to survive." The army of death quickly eliminated the players of White Dragon, faithfully carrying out Yin Wu's orders. They swallowed the souls of White Dragon's players, causing chaos on the battlefield. Yin Wu realized something strange was going on. "Why don't I see Brahm?" He should have appeared after sensing that Sesha and the others were in danger, but it seemed that he wasn't aware of the situation. Even when Yin Wu tried to connect with him, he could only faintly sense Brahm. It was impossible to send a message asking what he was doing. It was the same thing as before. The Sea of Time seemed like it was behaving unusually as well. Is it because of that? Yin Wu realized he needed to look into the things that had happened while he was claiming Olympus. However, that would be a task for later. Right now, he needed to deal with his enemy's plans. Open hollow corner bracket hung. Suddenly, Cha Jung-woo's vestige body called for Yin Wu. Yin Wu stiffened at the familiar voice and turned to the direction it came from. He was going to ask what Jung-woo thought he was doing to risk coming out into the real world. From what he knew, his brother wasn't stable enough to reveal himself. If Jung-woo pushed himself too hard, it was possible his existence would be destroyed. That meant even if Yin Wu managed to find Jung-woo's soul, it would be impossible to restore his old memories. However, Yin Wu didn't even finish speaking when he saw the person that Cha Jung-woo's vestige was possessing. Ananta was looking at him, holding Sesha tight in her arms. Open hollow corner bracket, are you Jung-woo? Kronos suddenly appeared in front of Cha Jung-woo, his voice shaky. Jung-woo's vestige's eyes grew wide. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Open hollow corner bracket father. Open hollow corner bracket why you're really Jung-woo. You. Open hollow corner bracket why are you? Wait, why do you look like that? Cha Jung-woo still believed Kronos was an average middle-aged man from Earth, and he was surprised to see Kronos with a spirit body like his. It was even more perplexing that his brother and his father were together. However, Kronos was too overwhelmed to answer his youngest son's question, and he simply embraced him tightly. Jungwoo's vestige body was too surprised to move at first, then he quickly returned Kronos' embrace. Kronos had barely managed to arrive at this point after suffering so many tragedies in hopes of rescuing his son in the tower. Jungwoo only wanted to return to the time when their family lived happily together. Even Yi-and-woo couldn't help feeling moved as he watched the reunion between father and son, since he was the only one who knew and understood the truth behind both their actions. However, they were pressed for time at the moment. Jungwoo, let's save the greetings for later. I'll explain it to you as we go. Open hollow corner bracket. Okay. Is there anything I can do to help? Cha Jungwoo's vestige left Kronos' arms and turned to Yi-and-woo with a solemn expression. Yi-and-woo nodded heavily. The spring you possess. Open hollow corner bracket spring. Jungwoo looked confused, but Ananta understood what Yi-and-woo meant. She untied the pocket watch around her neck and held it out to Yi-and-woo. This is what you need, right, brother-in-law? Yi-and-woo flinched at his new title, but he nodded casually and took the pocket watch. Tick, tick, the hands of the watch were still moving normally. If he could take back the spring of time within the watch, Kronos' full resurrection would be possible. And as the successor to his achievements and legends, Yi-and-woo would have the entirety of the throne of the King of Gods. Thank you. Please take good care of him. Ananta smiled at Cha Jungwoo's vestige body, which was now standing next to Yi-and-woo and Kronos. In her memories, Cha Jungwoo had seemed heartbroken till the end, and she felt overjoyed to see him happy now. One couldn't help sharing in the joy of one's lover. Dad, uncle, good luck. Open hollow corner bracket. Thanks. We'll be back soon. Listen to your mother in the meantime. Cha Jungwoo bent and rubbed Sesha's head, thinking how blessed he was to have such an adorable daughter. Kronos looked at his youngest son with envy and turned to Sesha with an expectant expression. Open hollow corner bracket. What about your grandfather? Anything for your grandfather? Who are you, old man? However, since it was Sesha's first time to see Kronos, she felt shy. Kronos' face filled with despair. Yi-and-woo ignored Kronos and spun Vigrid, forcing Kronos to the village with him. White Dragon wasn't completely defeated yet, but the Summer Queen and Bu Faust could take care of things. Open hollow corner bracket. Treated like a stranger by my own granddaughter. Old man, I'm an old man. Yi-and-woo felt his ears ache as he listened to Kronos muttering in despair, but he just ignored it and asked him a question. Father, so how do we restore the spring? It was easy to restore the spring of death inside of Vigrid since Yi-and-woo had the domain of death. All he needed to do was connect the two and restore the functions. However, the same couldn't be said for the spring of time. It was a domain entirely unknown to Yi-and-woo. He had no idea where to start, and he couldn't just force the spring of time out of the pocket watch because that would mean Jungwoo's vestige body would be in danger. He needed to find another way. Open hollow corner bracket. I don't know. What? Open hollow corner bracket. It's true. When I came up with this solution, I was too preoccupied to expect something like this. All I saw of the future was you entering the tower, and that's it. Yi-and-woo's face tightened and he nodded somberly. If he had enough time, he would look for all the possible ways, but they needed a temporary solution at the moment, considering the situation they were in. Cha Jungwoo's vestige body was silent. He had probably returned to the pocket watch to organize his thoughts since he had learned so many shocking secrets. He likely needed some time to understand them all. Meanwhile, Yi-and-woo reached the center of the village, where the duel for the throne was supposed to be. Capture all the traitors. Don't forgive them until they reveal how we can remove this barrier. Head Elder, we already told you. We don't know anything about this. Yi-and-woo was greeted by the chaos between the two factions of the One-Horn tribe. The Baeksan family and their allies claimed that they were the wronged ones to the tribe members who surrounded them. However, the head elder and most of the tribe members didn't believe them. They even exuded a murderous aura, as though they would attack at any moment. The usual positive and light-hearted atmosphere of the One-Horn tribe was nowhere to be seen. There was only heavy tension as if they were all walking on thin ice. Then, the Baeksan faction began to go on the defensive. They didn't want to be mistreated any longer, and the head elder naturally thought they were rebelling and cornered them even further. Yi-and-woo wondered if their enemies had been aiming for this as well. His draconic divine eyes saw something. Open hollow corner bracket. And the backup. Where is the backup? You said someone would rescue me and my family. And that we would regain our positions in the future. Open hollow corner bracket. Wait. This is more urgent. Open hollow corner bracket. How long do we have to wait? That damned bastard Kane could be here at any moment. Open hollow corner bracket. Wait. Hyena. Open hollow corner bracket. But Open hollow corner bracket. I will disconnect now. A faint red line most people wouldn't be able to see connected the Baeksan faction to White Dragon. It was a pairing line that didn't belong to the One-Horn tribe, since they only trained in martial arts and disregarded magic. This meant someone was delivering news to the outside. Player S Aura covers the village of the One-Horn tribe. The head elder, the Baeksan family head, and the other tribe members stopped growling at each other, surprised by the sudden storm of aura. They turned to see Yi and Wu. However, Yi and Wu paid them no mind as he stretched his hand out. The person who was on the other end of the pairing line floated up. It was the Baeksan family's royal successor, Jang. Ji grandfather. Jang, what are you? The Baeksan family head exclaimed in shock when his grandson was pulled towards Yi and Wu, but it was too late. Jang's neck was already in Yi and Wu's hand. I caught you, rat. Yi and Wu's eyes flashed dangerously. Save me. Jang's face had turned blue as he took the entire brunt of Yi and Wu's killing intent. There was a time when Jang was considered a threat to Fant since many people believed he had more talent than Fant. However, after Jang suffered a humiliating defeat to Yi and Wu, his prestige fell even further after he lost out to both Fant and Adora. Eventually, Jang ended up getting involved in things that he had no business doing. Demonic energy. Yi and Wu frowned as he looked down and felt the weak demonic energy emanating from Jang. Yi and Wu wondered how Jang had obtained such energy. Demonic energy was like a drug for players. It brought strength and pleasure depending on how it was used, but it gradually exhausted one's mind and eventually turned one into a demonic human. Jang was in the stage right before becoming a demon. Just like an addict, Jang's limbs shook as he emanated a low-quality, murky demonic energy. However, even low-quality demonic energy was still demonic energy. It tried to escape from Yi and Wu's grip, but Jang and his demonic energy could not even fight Yi and Wu's overwhelming magic power. Did no one in the Baeksan family or any of the other tribe members notice Jang's unusual state? There's no way they couldn't have known. Even if the demonic energy was barely noticeable, it could not deceive the senses that the tribe members possessed from birth. You, get your dirty hands off my child. His eyes shining with anger, the head of the Baeksan family slammed his foot on the ground and flew towards Yi and Wu. Yi and Wu instantly understood what was going on. He helped his son hide it all this time. Even porcupines cared tenderly for their young. The One-Horn tribe was very proud of their martial arts prowess, and they despised all foreign energy, such as magic, looking negatively on learning anything related to foreign energy. That meant that if someone like Jang, who was the son of a prominent family's leader, was dabbling in demonic energy, it would cause a problem. It was no surprise that Jang's family covered up his actions. Clank. The head of the Baeksan family boasted a power comparable to that of a high ranker, but before he could even approach Yi and Wu, he was blocked by Shannon's sword, which came out of the shadow. Open corner bracket. Hey, old man. How dare you attack our king temper? Do you have some extra lives squirreled away somewhere? Shut up. Let go of my child right now. Open corner bracket. Hey, no one forced you to stab us in the back, right? You're in the wrong, so why are you shouting so loudly? Get out of here. The head of the Baeksan family tried to push Shannon to the side, but Shannon had already earned the divine domain of conquest, so it was difficult for a mortal to contend against him. However, even though he noticed the difference between Shannon and himself, the head of the Baeksan family clenched his teeth and threw out as many martial attacks as he could manage, all with the intention of saving his grandson. Open corner bracket. If you really want to stab someone in the back, you can't do it half-assed. You have to be like our king temper and do it perfectly. That's why you guys are amateurs. Clank, clank, clank. Shannon smiled and spun sword breaker as he parried the attacks of the Baeksan family head. As Shannon's status had risen, his martial arts skills also improved. He seemed happy with the opportunity to compete with a member of the One-Horn tribe. The head of the Baeksan family couldn't save his grandson and his stomach churned. Elder, put your weapon away. In the end, the Baeksan family members could not bear to see their leader humiliated, and the members of the other families allied to them tried to come forward. Rumble, whoosh. Before they could move, they were forced to stop by a blood lightning bolt that fell from the sky. In the place where the lightning bolt struck, the head elder growled as he looked at the traitorous tribe members. Don't even think of taking a single step forward. From now on, those who disobey my orders will be considered traitors. Crackle, crackle. The blood-red thunderbolts that crackled around the head elder's body were so intense and hot that Fante's blood lightning could not even compare. Even though the head elder's fighting spirit was so ferocious that it should have made anyone steer clear of him. I said stop. Rumble. The members of the Baektion family had to protect their family at all costs, so they tried to resist the head elder's fighting aura. However, they were quickly swept away by a sudden blood-red lightning bolt that left no survivors. Looks of surprise spread across the faces of the tribe members. The tribe had laws and customs which governed how families should act, and there were different types of punishment for different crimes. In most cases, the punishment ranged from detention to physical punishment. Getting kicked out of a tribe was usually the worst type of penalty. The death penalty was rarely practiced since they were a race with a limited population to begin with. Furthermore, they shared the same culture and values. However, the head elder completely disregarded their customs since there was one crime that allowed this type of retribution: treason. Anyone who sought to break tribal bonds and disrupt the order of the community was a traitor. The martial king had a laid-back temperament, and he turned a blind eye towards those who acted unscrupulously. However, the head elder strictly adhered to tribal laws and could objectively look at crimes without regard for family affiliations. He had a reputation for being fair and impartial, which was also why the Baektion family and others could carry out a duel for the tribe's throne. No matter how powerful the martial king's authority was, they thought they had a chance if they took advantage of the head elder's impartiality and law-abiding nature to limit the martial king. In fact, the head elder was such a rigid observer of rules that many in the tribe thought that he was close-minded. Thus, the head elder's swift action was enough to shock his own tribe members. "Didn't you hear me say stop? Or does this old man look like an easy target since I've been quiet for a while?" The tribe members recalled the head elder's nickname, the Blood-Red Philosopher. Despite the scholarly impression that the nickname had, it had been given to the head elder because he left a sea of blood behind him whenever he acted. His nickname and deeds were part of an older generation and they had almost been forgotten. However, the other elders and heads remembered the fear and terror that the head elder had once caused, and they could feel his palpable rage. While everyone was too stunned to move, Hanryong. A shadow opened next to Yi and Wu. Hanryong appeared and bowed deeply in front of Yi and Wu. "Open corner bracket, please state your orders." "Make a path." Without delay, Hanryong drew out the largest among his 9 swords and swung it. Divine and magic power were tightly compressed in his strike, and it pounded on the illusory barrier that imprisoned the martial king. However, he couldn't make a single scratch. Unhappy with the results, Hanryong slashed several times more, but the barrier did not budge. "Open corner bracket, it seems that we have to find another way." Hanryong spoke through gritted teeth as if his self-esteem had been severely injured. Considering that each of his blows was comparable to sword thunder, it was clear that the enemy was prepared. Yi and Wu was even more convinced about Asgard's participation, and he glared coldly at Jang, who was still trying to escape his grasp. "How do you open that barrier? Do you think you won't face any consequences from doing this? It's probably better if you answer my question." "No. Answer me. How do I get inside? Do you think I'll talk? Let go of me. I guess it can't be helped." "What?" Crunch. He twisted Jang's head around. "Jang." A mournful cry resounded from the head of the Baektion family. "Summon of the dead." Yi and Wu tossed Jang's corpse to the ground and activated Summon of the Dead. The cast of the Black King trembled violently. "Summon of the Dead has been activated. Who do you want to summon?" "Jang. Is. Open corner bracket. Ah, why you killed me?" Jang exclaimed with a shocked expression. However, Yi and Wu couldn't care less. Yi and Wu brought out the purgatory furnace and locked the soul of the young man inside. "Arg!" A scream floated out. After imprisoning Jang's soul in the flames of the purgatory furnace, Yi and Wu interrogated him. The flames of the purgatory furnace had even made Viera Dune, who had once swallowed Mother Earth, spit out all that she knew even as she screamed in agony. Jang was already addicted to demonic energy, and he was no match for the purgatory furnace's flames. In the end, Jang's soul confessed all his sins to Yi and Wu and the tribe. "So, in the guise of hyena, you provided information about the tribe to Faceless and the others, right? Were you involved in anything else?" Open corner bracket. "Why yes. Now that I've confessed, please make it stop. If you committed a crime, you should be punished." Open corner bracket. "Wait, that's not what you promised. You said you'd let me die if I told you everything." Jang's soul disappeared, screaming as it was imprisoned in the purgatory furnace. Everyone was silent, from the head elder to the Baektion family. Jang's confession had been too shocking. He had revealed that he planned and executed all these horrendous things to become the tribe's next king. Once the assassination of the martial king was over, Faceless would sit on the throne, and Faceless had promised Jang that he would be his successor. They would also use the inevitable confusion that would arise to chase out anyone from the tribe who was expendable. Faceless would also put his supporters in key positions in the tribe. It was nothing short of treason. The head of the Baektion family sat on the ground in disbelief. Not only was his precious grandson dead, but all the accomplishments of their family flowed out of their hands like sand. Gather them up. Those who resist must be disposed of. The judgments will be issued after everything is settled. The head elder quickly recovered and commanded his tribe members to gather the criminals. He thought it would take considerable effort and time to punish them. Jiang had told Yianwu how to cross the illusory barrier, and he quickly moved. Since the martial king was so great, Yianwu did not think he would be easily defeated. Still, a gnawing anxiety made Yianwu impatient. Yianwu had never felt this way before, so he wondered why he was so worried. It was driving Yianwu crazy. Hanryong, I haven't been able to see Adora ever since we arrived. Find her. Open corner bracket, your wish is my command. Yianwu also started feeling a sense of concern about Adora, whose presence he could not detect. We also don't know who provided the demonic energy to Jiang. Besides Asgard, another hidden force seemed to be involved. Yianwu reached out to the barrier, thinking that he should save the martial king first. Jiang didn't actually know how to break through the barrier, and he only knew of a spot where one could bypass it. However, only a few people could enter this way. SS's. Vigrid read Yianwu's thoughts and conformed to Yianwu's grip. Once Vigrid and Yianwu unified, Yianwu's consciousness expanded infinitely. The spring of death is at work. Whoosh! Yianwu swung Vigrid and opened up emptiness. He formed a path into the illusory barrier and was about to step through it when the head elder's voice spoke in his ear. Open hollow corner bracket, be careful. If they could come up with such an intricate plan, they're probably prepared for any surprises. Furthermore, close hollow corner bracket. Yianwu stopped for a moment. It seemed that the head elder wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Open hollow corner bracket, it's nothing. Anyway, just bring back that stubborn asshole. Please. In the end, the head elder couldn't bring himself to say the words. However, Yianwu could feel a deep sense of concern in the head elder's voice. Yianwu nodded and pushed inside the barrier. Yianwu instantly smelled something burning. What's going on? Yianwu's eyes narrowed. The illusory world wasn't breaking apart easily. If the being who created the illusory world had an unrestrained consciousness, the illusory world could restore itself over and over no matter how much damage it endured. This was why those trapped in an illusory world could not use their full power. That was how the Monkey King's Exuvi had managed to seal the crawling chaos. Yianwu had already experienced the power of illusory change at the demonic sea, so he had already prepared himself for a struggle inside the illusory world. No matter how Yianwu looked at it, the situation seemed unfavorable. This air, it's all part of a holy territory. It's also a great holy territory that a huge society has unfolded. This must be Asgard's doing, those bastards. Yianwu realized right away from the rich divine power that Asgard had completely changed the level of the illusory world. However, he was alarmed to discover ruins within the illusory world, something that didn't usually happen. Despite its self-restoring power, the holy territory had been trashed. The land was already a horrendous environment. The ground had turned black, with large mounds and deep holes. The restoration that had attempted to proceed had been interrupted for some reason, and the half-completed areas only made everything look even more bizarre. Asgard's divine power, which filled the illusory world's atmosphere, was also in a strange state. One's divinity affected the characteristics of one's divine power, which could overwhelm the entire illusory world. Yianwu sensed that the divine power had been burned to a crisp, as though it were deteriorating. Perhaps it was the result of the battle between Asgard and the martial king. Even Yianwu found it hard to guess just how intense and fierce the battle had been. Bam, 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 whoosh. At that very moment, as if in reply, the clashes rang from afar. A shockwave reverberated, and even though he had already achieved unity with Kronos and was close to being a supreme god, Yianwu grew tense. Open hollow corner bracket, son, is that? Yes, I believe it's my master. Open hollow corner bracket, him. I heard a lot of great things about him from you, but what the hell is this level? Can a mortal really possess this level of power? Kronos laughed in disbelief. Even he was surprised. Kronos had existed so long that many beings would find it hard to even guess his age. It was possible to say that Kronos had existed with the history of the universe, and he had overseen many worlds and ruled over many universes. He had seen and encountered many mortals, and before meeting Shinria and starting an ordinary family, Kronos considered mortals as insignificant as grains of sand on a sandy beach. His surprise meant that the martial king's existence was beyond understanding. Open hollow corner bracket. Are you sure he hasn't exuviated or transcended? Yes, I'm sure. If he had exuviated or transcended, Alpharaon would not have let it go. Open hollow corner bracket. That's true, but close hollow corner bracket. Kronos let out a HMPH before continuing. Open hollow corner bracket. You had a lot of influences and advantages from me and Jungwoo that allowed you to make such great achievements, but I can't fathom how a mere mortal with no background could rise to such a level. Kronos' words were filled with astonishment. Open hollow corner bracket. Even if he's the descendant of Xiaohao Jintianhum. Ha ha ha, I've had such a long life that I thought I'd already seen everything. Yi Yanwu rolled his eyes. It was true that the martial king was great, but to Yi Yanwu, Kronos was no less impressive. I've always known that Master's powers and abilities were spectacular, but is he really that great? Open hollow corner bracket. Don't be silly. If he's already this powerful, then, once he exuviates close hollow corner bracket. Kronos stopped speaking and clucked his tongue. Open hollow corner bracket. He'd start at the King of Gods level. About as strong as I was in my prime. Yi Yanwu listened carefully. Kronos was implying that the martial king would bring out his full power and glory if he were to exuviate or transcend. Open hollow corner bracket. And if he transcends? I guess he'd start at the emperor level from the start, right? Kronos mused. Open hollow corner bracket. Then how strong is Alpharaon if he can block a being like your master? As he listened, Yi Yanwu flew to the source of the violent clashes. Bam! Where is Alpharaon? Is he ignoring this because this world is outside the tower? Would such a nosy guy let this happen? Yi Yanwu wondered the same thing that the martial king had. However, Yi Yanwu didn't have much time to think as something like a burned piece of wood flew in front of him. Crack! Yi Yanwu swung Vigrid to cut down the object flying towards him, however, it felt like he was cutting through a lump of sand. The burned wood shattered and scattered in the air before it even had the chance to hit the ground. Open hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket. YU. Hash. How the hell did he get here? At that moment, the three gods who had come to rescue the blackened firewood recognized Yi Yanwu and froze in place, stunned, as though they couldn't believe how Yi Yanwu managed to appear. They were completely dumbfounded. I see. Yi Yanwu realized that their plan had been to quickly assassinate or capture the martial king and then retreat. After their defeat, Asgard had requested a peace treaty with Yi Yanwu's allies, but behind the scenes, they were plotting with Faceless and others to attack the martial king. Asgard was likely hoping that taking some of Yi Yanwu's allies hostage would give them the upper hand when it came to negotiating the peace treaty. Furthermore, Asgard was probably hoping to take their revenge against Yi Yanwu by harming those close to him. In their arrogant eyes, the one-horned tribe must have been nothing more than just a group of mortals. Despite the martial king's reputation, they probably considered him a simple target they could easily subdue. However, the martial king possessed such outstanding skills that even Kronos had been astonished. Thus, since their supreme god Odin was still under the influence of the heavenly demon disease, Asgard had realized too late and with great humiliation how difficult it was to capture the martial king on their own. Rumble. Before the three gods could even regain their composure, Yi Yanwu swept them all away with sword energy and continued moving until he finally arrived at the epicenter of the battlefield, where the martial king was. Ha! 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 The martial king was breathing heavily. His torso was drenched in so much sweat that he looked like he'd taken a shower. The bulging veins on his muscles seemed on the verge of exploding. It was a terrifying sight. Steam rose from his body, illustrating just how fiercely he had been fighting. The martial king was so tired that he did not even realize that his disciple Yi Yanwu had arrived. The gods that the martial king had just dispatched were reforming. When he saw that a battle was about to break out again, Yi Yanwu was ready to jump in and assist the martial king. He gathered his sword energy when, unexpectedly, something shot at his blind spot. Whoosh! Open hollow corner bracket sun. At Kronos' warning, Yi Yanwu quickly turned and deflected the arrow that had almost reached his forehead. Clang! The impact made Vigrid tremble violently even though it was full of magic power. Yi Yanwu's expression stiffened. Bam! The arrow was not real, it was a bundle of light. Furthermore, it did not break and only changed directions, splitting into three before flying towards Yi Yanwu's knee, chin, and forehead. Boom! Bam! 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 Yi Yanwu layered sword energy onto Vigrid and tore through space as he tried to parry the arrows of light. He managed to destroy 2 of them, but the one flying towards his forehead split into multiple beams before his sword energy could reach it. The beams of light bent at odd angles to form a cage over Yi and Wu. It was as if mirrors had been placed around him. Yi and Wu had to create a swirling tornado of sword energy to destroy the beams of light. Once the cage collapsed, Yi and Wu was returned to the ravaged battlefield with its pungent, smoky air. He looked up. Bam! Someone quietly descended, and as soon as Yi and Wu saw that person's face, his own expression stiffened. It was the face of someone that Yi and Wu did not expect to see here at all. Jiang Wei. Jiang Wei the bow god slightly smiled as he raised his sun-shooting bow at Yi and Wu and pulled. It was the same arrow of light that had perplexed Yi and Wu just a moment ago. The aura Jiang Wei emanated did not seem like one from an individual player. Yi and Wu's eyes narrowed. No, you're not Jiang Wei. Who are you? The god who wore Jiang Wei's face smirked. We are called the Trinity Wonders. I am Hu Yi. Bam! Hu Yi let loose an arrow. A single beam of light penetrated the world. Open hollow corner bracket a disciple who knowingly walks to his grave to save his master. Martial King, you have a pretty decent disciple, no? SS is. Thor smirked as he restored his spirit body. The situation was going well for him. Thor had planned to capture the people Yi and Wu cared about and use them to gain advantage over him. However, Yi and Wu had appeared of his own accord. If Thor could get rid of Yi and Wu right now, he would do it. Thor and the others had prepared for this possibility, but he hadn't expected that it would actually happen, considering how clever Yi and Wu was. This disciple's heart was much softer than Thor had believed. Foolish kid, the Martial King said as he read the situation. When the illusory barrier first appeared, the Martial King had overwhelmed Asgard's forces. However, while Asgard's forces could revive endlessly, the Martial King had reached his limits and was slowly succumbing to the environmental constraints of the illusory world. The Martial King grew more exhausted as time passed. He didn't even know how long he'd been fighting, it seemed like several months had passed. He was completely disconnected from the outside world, and the Hydra's venom and Gaia's curse were gradually eroding the Martial King's soul. Hydra's venom made even great gods shake with fear, and even with his ability to repel toxins, there was only so much the Martial King could do to keep the venom's effects at bay. At the same time, Gaia's curse tried to scatter the achievements that the Martial King had accumulated so far, which disrupted him as well. If the Martial King had been an ordinary mortal, Gaia's curse wouldn't affect him so badly. However, the problem was that his achievements were so vast that he could exuviate at any time. The One-Horn tribe's martial arts was their medium for accumulating achievements. In other words, the Martial King's incredible martial arts level was built on his achievements. Thus, if his achievements were damaged, his martial arts would crumble. It was the same principle as Yi and Wu's skill, thought control. Open hollow corner bracket the fact that you're still fighting despite your sorry state speaks to your greatness. My peers and I all have to admit it. Your power is astonishing, and it's a mystery why you're still immortal. Spit, you sure have a dirty tongue. Are you scared? Shut up and fight. Open hollow corner bracket no. Since has arrived, our business with you is over. What kind of bullshit is this? The Martial King's face contorted. Didn't these bastards start the fight? And now they decided they didn't want to fight anymore. The Martial King's physical condition had reached rock bottom, and the rational choice would be to leave the battlefield. However, his pride wouldn't allow him to do so. Now that Asgard's forces were planning to focus their attacks on Yi and Wu, as Yi and Wu's master, the Martial King couldn't run away and save himself, leaving his disciple behind. However, Thor's smile became broader as if he already knew the Martial King's concerns. Open hollow corner bracket there is someone who's been waiting his turn, so you'll be fighting him. What kind of? The Martial King's words faltered when an unexpected person appeared behind Thor. Open hollow corner bracket master, it has been a while. I'm not even sure how many years it has been. It was Nocturne. He was the Martial King's second disciple, and the Martial King had thrown him away, just as he did with his first disciple. However, unlike his encounter with the Sword God, the Martial King's eyes trembled. You. Actually, I didn't really want to see you like this. Nocturne glanced at the Sword God whom Thor was possessing before turning back to the Martial King. Nocturne spoke in a calm tone, I heard something unexpected recently. The Martial King was silent. I've been trying to recover my lost memories but I heard that Master has always known about my past. You've been hiding something from me. Still stunned, the Martial King didn't reply. I guess what I heard was right. I didn't want to believe it. Nocturne smiled bitterly once he saw the Martial King's eyes tremble. Even though the Martial King had discarded him, Nocturne still saw the Martial King as his master and trusted him, but now, his trust in the Martial King was crumbling like a house of cards. Nocturne's expression grew cold as he spoke bluntly, "There's a secret on the 21st floor, in the Shadow Dojo, that none of the ordinary players know, right? Nocturne, listen to me. In the final section where the number 1 player's simulation should be, Alpharone's simulation is missing." Nocturne's eyes darkened. Is that missing simulation me? Nocturne's first memories were of someone's back. That someone had long, unkempt hair and was deep in thought. In a few moments, Nocturne would call this person his master. Are you awake? Sensing Nocturne's presence, the Martial King roused himself and looked at Nocturne. Where am I? An area outside the tower. It's the village of the One-Horned tribe. Thank why? Nocturne suddenly frowned as a piercing pain shot through his skull. He had a pounding headache and tinnitus rang in his ears. His vision grew so distorted, as though it were breaking up like static. After grabbing his head and pressing his temples hard, Nocturne realized something. He possessed no memories. Who am I? Where the hell am I from? My name, what is my name? For a moment, thoughts flashed through Nocturne's mind like afterimages. He felt like his mind was a tangled mess. His head grew hot as if a fever were coming on. Don't overdo it. What should I say? After calming Nocturne down, the Martial King scratched the back of his head as if something were troubling him. He asked, "Some things happened, so I brought you here. Do you remember?" Nocturne shook his head, dumbfounded. The Martial King was talking about him as though he were a stray kitten he'd brought home. Nocturne was initially a little puzzled by the Martial King's reaction. Later, when Nocturne understood the Martial King's personality, he connected this reaction to the Martial King's character and didn't think much of it. You don't remember anything? Then, stay here for a while. You can leave after your memories return. Thank you. Nocturne, why do you have a name like that? It's so uncool. The first thing Nocturne did as soon as he got up from his sickbed was give himself a name. I can give you a cooler name. Like Rumble or Bam, how about it? If I recall correctly, Master has many disciples. May I ask what their names are? Fant, Adora, Jiang Wei. Are you playing a joke on me or are you just terrible at names? Of course, I was joking. You're all alone in this world with only a master, but you don't even show an ounce of respect. I never said that I would formally accept you as my martial arts master and become your disciple. After checking Nocturne's stats, the Martial King said that he was quite impressed with Nocturne's potential and asked him to become his second disciple. Nocturne had already decided to stay in the village until his memory returned, so the Martial King's offer did not affect his decision in any way. From Nocturne's point of view, the Martial King was qualified to serve as his martial arts master. Nocturne found it hard to measure the depths of the Martial King's skills. However, one thing bothered Nocturne about the Martial King: his dirty personality. Nocturne had heard that the Martial King had another disciple before, and Nocturne was amazed that someone could have developed properly under such a dirty personality. However, that disciple had persuaded the Martial King's brother to escape from the village together, so technically the disciple had run away. Perhaps you are going through puberty? I've heard about that condition before. I don't remember my own experiences, but those undergoing puberty feel as though black dragon flames are constantly roiling in the palms of their hands, or they feel like they've suddenly awakened from a past life. Are you having those impulses? Sigh. For a moment, Nocturne considered whether to strike the Martial King with the sword in his hand. However, Nocturne quickly realized that the Martial King would easily beat him to death if he tried it. Although the Martial King was the one who started it, he would never allow anyone to point a sword his way. Anyway, it did not matter for Nocturne. He was more focused on his own dignity. Nocturne was a typical introvert, and even though he had amnesia, he knew it would be easier to just overlook people like the Martial King. Fine, the name is yours to decide. I don't think it's something I should argue with you about. Shall I call you by that name in the future? The Martial King looked at Nocturne, who exhibited no reaction. The Martial King seemed to be thinking, I won't have any fun in teasing this disciple. Nocturne slowly nodded. Nocturne, a musical composition inspired by and relating to the night. The melody of a nocturne flowed as lyrically as the atmosphere and mystery of a quiet night. Since he was trying to recover his own memory, Nocturne could relate to such a melody, and he thought the name suited him well. He longed for the day when his wish of regaining his memory would come true. Someday, this dark, blind period would end, and a new light would illuminate his old memories. Ah! The Martial King let out a long sigh and looked at Nocturne with an exasperated expression. You're going to leave? That's right. May I ask why? I have come to the realization that I will only be complacent if I stay here. It would be a waste of time. I am sorry for not being able to fulfill Master's wish, but I must also pursue my own goal. I felt something was a little off after you passed the 21st floor. The Martial King seemed to have more to say, but he lightly clucked his tongue and brushed his hair back before he continued, forget it. I was also thinking that it would be difficult to find the secrets of the Yin sword from you. Aside from that, you do know what it means to leave without my permission, right? Yes. Nocturne nodded heavily. In the One-Horn tribe, the relationship between a disciple and a master ran very deep. There were occasions when the relationship was deeper than one's relationship to a parent. For the One-Horn tribe, martial arts was everything in life. It was the only goal that they all pursued. One's master established and developed one's martial arts foundation, which gave them more significance than one's parents. If a disciple wanted to leave without the permission of their master, it was tantamount to abandoning their master's teachings. In other words, the disciple was refusing the master's help and declaring that they would never return. It also implied that the master and the disciple would essentially become enemies. The Martial King's expression was the most serious Nocturne had seen since he became a disciple. Nocturne, a disciple of the Cheongram family, the Martial King declared in a solemn tone, is hereby excommunicated. For everything, Nocturne audibly gulped to stop his rising emotions from surfacing. Nocturne did not know what he was feeling. Perhaps it was an emotional outburst before tears. Nocturne thought he had forgotten all feelings along with his memories, but that did not seem to be the case. Thank you for teaching me, Master. For a moment, Nocturne recalled his history with the Martial King. He had relatively fond memories. His album of memories only had a few pages, and the times he shared with the Martial King took up the most space. After that time, as he climbed the tower in earnest, Nocturne went through many ups and downs and formed numerous new relationships. Nothing compared to the days he spent in the village of the One-Horn tribe. He had often thought of those days whenever his journey became tiresome. It had been a time of peace and happiness. However, Nocturne eventually realized that happiness was nothing more than a deception. The Sword God, whom Nocturne had only seen a few times, had come to Nocturne and told him a secret that no one else knew. Do you remember telling me that the One-Horn tribe had a secret passed down through the generations from a very long time ago? At first, Nocturne did not believe the Sword God's words. However, instead of directly confronting the Martial King, Nocturne had made a few hints because he still trusted his old master. Bright Tai Chi Pengu sword art. However, once Nocturne mentioned the simulation on the 21st floor, he had immediately noticed the fleeting quiver of the Martial King's eyes. Thus, Nocturne's faith had been shaken. Xiao Hao Jintian, the founder and one of the members of the Trinity Wonder, realized right away the importance of this sword art and gave it to his descendants with his bloodline, but none of them were ever able to penetrate its secrets. Although his faith was shaken, Nocturne's heart did not waver. To clear his mind, Nocturne deliberately spoke in a cold tone. I often wondered about it from time to time. Why couldn't someone like the master not understand the secret right away? Isn't that too strange? Aside from Alpharon, you are the strongest player. If it weren't for Alpharon's divine power, Master might have already surpassed him. Why couldn't Master understand the secrets of the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword? Nocturne had been convinced for a long time that the Martial King possessed the power and ability to rival any of the great gods in the heavenly world. His current battle with Asgard already proved how great he was. If anyone in the heavenly world had heard and seen the events in this illusory world, they would have been shocked. Furthermore, if it came to martial arts power and force, Nocturne was certain that the Martial King was already beyond Alpharon. There was only one reason why the Martial King could not beat Alpharon, Alpharon's position. Alpharon was the nickname that everyone used to refer to the great being, although, All for One, was originally a term that referred to the divinity and legends that Alpharon possessed. As long as Alpharon possessed his divinity, no one, whether supreme god or ancient god, could overtake him within the world of the tower. The Martial King had always been frustrated by this, and he had made every effort to surpass Alpharon's divine supremacy. The method the Martial King chose to use against the seemingly insurmountable divinity of Alpharon was the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword. I only realized later on. It's not that Master didn't understand the secrets of the sword art. Nocturne's eyes grew sharp. You understand the secrets, but it's impossible for you to learn them. The Martial King's restlessness stopped. A silence passed between the two, and the corner of Nocturne's lips twisted upward. The reason is simple. Doesn't Xiaohao Jintian's divinity originate from the sun? The main purpose of the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword was to bring out the harmony of yin and yang. However, for Xiaohao Jintian's descendants, who were born with a yang-filled body, this area of study was virtually impossible. Even if the one-horned tribe wanted to understand the secrets and practice the arts, their physical nature was too inclined towards yang. The innate qualities of the martial arts that the one-horned tribe was blessed with became an obstacle to accomplishing Xiaohao Jintian's long-cherished wish. In the end, the only thing the martial king could achieve was the sword art that Adora trained in. Master found out about it too late, and you became frustrated. The bright Tai Chi Pengu sword was the only thing that could cut off Alpharone's divinity, but it was a treasure that you could never obtain. Is. With each word that he spoke, Nocturne's aura emanated. Once, the martial king had told Yi and Wu that Nocturne scored 80 out of 100 points. This meant that Nocturne was one of the few beings in the lower world who could go toe-to-toe with the martial king. The great holy territory started to tremble wildly as though it were preparing the ground for this occasion. But Master never gave up, so you must have found another way. Since you couldn't learn it yourself, you thought it would be more effective to get a disciple to learn the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword. Nocturne. So, after a long search, you took in a disciple who possessed a powerful innate sense, and his qualities were comparable to those of the one-horned tribe. However, he was soon excommunicated because he couldn't fulfill your desires. Shouting, Nocturne cut off the martial king's calm response. Nocturne had always been composed, but he couldn't stop his rage from boiling over. In the end, your thoughts must have led you to the simulation on the 21st floor. If you could obtain the simulation, it would not only have enough talent, it would also possess the old data of the hated Alpharone, so it would be easier to figure out his weaknesses. Isn't this the case? The martial king was the reason behind Alpharone's missing simulation on the 21st floor. He had taken it out of the tower. Nocturne didn't know how the martial king managed to defy the tower's system. However, one thing was certain, he was just a lab rat, a test subject for the martial king. The martial king had treated Nocturne like a doll, pretending to give him love and sincerity so he could experiment on him. The times that Nocturne had tried to recall his lost memories, the nights he was consumed by nightmares, the tears of loneliness he'd shed, the moments when he'd sought his master's attention to fill the void inside of him, what did the martial king truly think of these times? Did the martial king laugh at Nocturne's struggle to recall memories that never existed in the first place? Did the martial king find it funny to watch a piece of data who wasn't even a real being trying to act like a person? Nocturne didn't know. No, he didn't want to know. Any further deception beyond this point would rip out whatever was left of him. Nocturne clenched his sword and screamed, "From now on, I will be your new opponent. I will grab onto your ankles so that you are buried in this place." Rumble. Master. The great holy territory shook violently. Nocturne's body began to crack open, light leaking through him, as though Alpharone had descended. Nocturne was exuviating. The martial king's eyes widened. Usually, his emotions didn't waver, and even though he was shaken by the fact that Nocturne had discovered his true identity, the martial king had largely kept his composure. Now, it was completely shattered. Exuviation. Nocturne had developed beyond when he was first pulled out of the 21st floor. Although he was completely unknown, he possessed enormous potential because he was based on such a powerful being, resulting in a steep rise in power. Nocturne had already fulfilled the conditions to achieve exuviation. Even transcendence was possible. This fact meant that another Alpharone could be born. Open hollow corner bracket. This is madness. Open hollow corner bracket. How could anyone allow another monster to be created? Open hollow corner bracket. Can we really allow this to happen? HMPH. Even the gods of Asgard snorted, sensing the threat that Nocturne posed. Some even looked at Thor as if asking whether they should intervene, but Thor shook his head firmly. Bang. Rumble. The martial king moved quickly to stop Nocturne's reckless behavior. Boom, boom, boom. However, half covered in a brilliant white haze, Nocturne violently smashed down with his sword. Although the martial king would have normally thought twice about confronting this tremendous sword strike, he recklessly parried it, yelling out, "You stupid bastard. You're only giving Alpharone a reason to intervene. Why are you acting like this?" Nocturne smiled mockingly. Then and now, Master has always been afraid of Alpharone. What, isn't Alpharone the only enemy in the lower world that Master could not defeat? I understand. I know that the fearless Master has always been in hiding. I also know the reason why you're so concerned about Alpharone. However, in an instant, the Martial King's face stiffened. You don't have to worry, Master. Alpharaon will never come here. What? Unless we were idiots, don't you think we would have already made preparations? Only then did the Martial King realize someone who wasn't present had brought Faceless, Asgard, Nocturne, and even himself into this illusory world like chess pieces. Whoosh! At that moment, beams of light poured out of Nocturne and enveloped him. As the number of cracks that spread over his skin grew, all the fragments that made up his existence crumbled and disappeared. The aura of Nocturne's spirit spread out in all directions as light that assimilated with the illusory world. A new owner has been added to the great holy territory. An independent god, Nocturne, has formed a holy territory. Nocturne had achieved transcendence in tandem with exuviation. A new Alpharaon existence had been born. Open hollow corner bracket I am soulless. Furthermore, my ego is a copy of another. I don't know how you managed to give me player status, but I am not a person. Nocturne's calm voice resonated like the real Alpharaon's. The only thing that made Nocturne different from Alpharaon was the blue light he emitted instead of Alpharaon's gold. Open hollow corner bracket who am I? What should I do next? Give me an answer, Master. The pressure that Nocturne gave off was the same as Alpharaon's. The Martial King could feel it weighing down on his shoulders. The Martial King felt as if something invisible were binding his spirit tightly. Boom! Recalling the time when he had faced off against Alpharaon, the Martial King immediately shot back to create some distance between himself and Nocturne. The difference between Alpharaon and the Martial King was paper thin. The Martial King's skills were clearly superior to Alpharaon's. In terms of martial art ability or aura, the Martial King did not lose out either. In fact, the Martial King was even stronger. However, there was one advantage Alpharaon had over the Martial King: power originating from divinity. The power that Alpharaon possessed as the Tower's apostle could overcome everything. In other words, Alpharaon represented the Tower, and to the Martial King, Alpharaon was an incarnation of the Tower's system. If Nocturne could wield the same power as Alpharaon, or even half that power, the Martial King had no chance of defeating him. Even if the Martial King successfully pulled off thought control, the system would override him within its confines. It was close to impossible to completely break the Tower's rule. This was the reason why all the gods and demons in the heavenly world, the conceptual and ancient gods unknown to the lower world, and even emperor-level beings could not overcome Alpharaon. Everyone was essentially subordinate to the Tower's system. How could they possibly resist Alpharaon, who was the will of the system? A prisoner bound in chains couldn't disobey his guard. Of course, to avoid being chained forever, the Martial King had sought to find the key to release himself from the system's shackles. However, the Martial King had not completed the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword, which he believed to be the key to freedom, and this meant he had to avoid a direct confrontation with Alpharaon. Open hollow corner bracket right. I knew you couldn't provide me with an answer. You never even thought you needed to. To you, I am just a lab rat. Once I no longer had any use, you threw me away. That was how you saw me. But Master close hollow corner bracket. Although Nocturne's words weren't accurate, the Martial King could not reply. Nocturne was different from his first disciple, whom the Martial King did not trust because of his sly personality. The Martial King's third disciple always did better than expected, and the Martial King never had to worry about him. However, his second disciple, Nocturne, always made him feel concerned. Thus, there were many things that the Martial King wanted to say. He wanted to tell Nocturne that he was mistaken. He wanted to say that it was a misunderstanding, that he never considered Nocturne a lab rat. However, Nocturne seemed unwilling to listen to anything. The Martial King would have to force him to listen, but there was only one way to defeat Nocturne, who was essentially like Alpharaon. The Martial King would have to also undergo exuviation and transcendence. He would have to go through with the process that he had delayed all this time. However, gulp. Damn it. The Martial King swallowed the blood that was threatening to come out from his mouth and flow down his lips. Gaia's curse was tying his hands. The curse was causing havoc in him, and the Martial King did not know what effects it would have once he became a god and possessed divinity. Faceless did his first disciple plan ahead for all of this? Open hollow corner bracket even with this appearance, I still do not know my identity, who I truly am. This is because I never possessed a past. I was a lifeless doll from the start. Rumble. Nocturne did not pursue his master, and he stood in place as though he were alone in the world. He clenched his fists as he gathered his body's overflowing power in his hands, the power that made up all the worlds including the illusory world. Idea moved. Boom. When he took a step, the air pressure grew stronger, and all the air currents in the illusory world rushed towards the Martial King to imprison him. Open hollow corner bracket thus, I'll establish my identity from now on. Nocturne moved. Open hollow corner bracket I'll do this by severing all the ties I had in the past. The Martial King shot his hands towards Nocturne, who had suddenly cut through space and appeared in front of the Martial King. He now understood what the prophecies meant. One wrong step in this place will really become my burial place. For the first time, cold sweat trickled down the Martial King's back. Gaia's curse was still aiming for his heart. The Martial King clenched his jaw. He unleashed the 8 extreme fists. Boom. Bam, 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 bam. Yian Wu detonated his sword energy as he struck down the light that swarmed around him. Yian Wu was shocked by the conversation between the Martial King and Nocturne. Alpharone's simulation. Yian Wu recalled the 21st floor and his eyes widened. The Martial King had pulled off many extraordinary things, but how did he bring out a piece of data? Furthermore, how could that data have free will like a living being? Each simulation was nothing more than a program that executed a command to defeat its challenger in any way possible. However, no, maybe that's not all. Yian Wu shook his head as he recalled the simulations of his younger brother and the Martial King. His younger brother's simulation had smiled before being defeated. The Martial King's simulation had ignored the set of commands governing the trial and developed his own martial arts with his ego. Yian Wu recalled being driven to the brink by the Martial King's simulation. Perhaps there was an error within the tower's system that normal players could not detect. Or maybe there was an Easter egg that had yet to be revealed. Whatever the case, the fact that a new Alpharone could be born was shocking. How the hell did the sword god know this information? Yian Wu could only conclude that there was a hidden antagonist involved. What are you looking at? Just then, a terrifying voice echoed behind Yian Wu. Turning your head in the thick of battle is the same as sticking your neck out and shouting out to the world to cut your head off. Open hollow corner bracket son, behind you. Yian Wu snapped back to his senses and twisted around at Kronos' urgent cry. Clang. Yiya wielded his weapon, Justice, like a dagger and clashed with Vigrid. Jiang Wei no, Yiya, who was in the form of Jiang Wei, said with a smile, you're exactly like they say. You're very talented. I heard that you call yourself the king of gods now. I guess you possess the power to make that claim. Yian Wu frowned as he gauged the power that was pressing against Vigrid. You heard. Yiya did not answer Yian Wu's question and only smiled strangely in reply. Yian Wu became certain that Yiya had joined forces with the hidden antagonist. Why is a member of the Trinity Wonder intervening here? Wasn't it one of your main principles not to intervene in tower-related issues? The status that the Trinity Wonder had within the tower was completely different from that of other gods. As pioneers who first opened the world of the tower to players, the members of the Trinity Wonder were objects of worship. For gods and demons, the Trinity Wonder was an abominable enemy, not much different from the heavenly demon because the members of Trinity Wonder were little more than guards watching over them. The seat of the sun, Xiao Hao Jintian. The master of the moon, Yiya. The first to set foot in the underworld, Yama. All of these beings had once been followers and vassals of the heavenly demon. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they represented the will of the heavenly demon, who had built the tower and trapped the gods and demons before bringing players from various universes and dimensions inside. In other words, these three created the tower's system on behalf of the heavenly demon. In the world of the tower, they were the creators. Yian Wu had to cry foul at Yiya's participation. However, Yiya's answer surprised Yian Wu. That was the situation at first. What? But now I'm starting to wonder if the system is really working the way that guy wanted it to. That guy. Yian Wu understood that Yiya was referring to the heavenly demon. The tower's floors and trials have not been working properly for a long time. They've become stagnant. The heavenly world is busy consolidating. Things are different from the ideal we pursued. That's why I've set out personally to fix the issues. Yian Wu couldn't understand Yiya's meaning. Yiya laughed bitterly. Well, I don't really expect you to understand. Let's just say we have different opinions. Otherwise, why would I have worked with my mortal enemy, the Chan sect? I've moved on to another place now. Yiya meant that he was pursuing something personal. When he read the revelations in the Chenggong library, Yian Wu had gained a vague understanding of the secrets of the universe's creation. Yian Wu also had an idea of the role that the heavenly demon had played then and how Xiao Hao Jintian and Yiya had supported him. In the process, Yiya had reached the supreme god level. Perhaps, Yiya was close to entering the emperor level now. The power that Yian Wu sensed through Vigrid seemed to support this. Yi was not an opponent that Yi Wu could take lightly. Moreover, considering that Xiao Hao Jintian had completed the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword, which even the martial king had yet to master, and that Yi stood shoulder to shoulder with Xiao Hao Jintian, Yi Wu could feel a deluge of curses springing up to his throat. If Yi Wu was right and Alpharon was the son of the heavenly demon, it meant that the heavenly demon and his gang were in control of everything. Anyway, we only want one thing. Whoosh. Yi was not only good at archery but also in various martial arts, and he could easily cross swords with Yi Wu while speaking in a cold voice, to bind you here so that you can no longer intervene. What? You've been chosen. Yi of the less than sea of time greater than is looking straight at you. Yi Wu's eyes widened. Who would have guessed that this name would appear? Yi Wu gritted his teeth as his anger grew. He didn't know what they were aiming for, but one thing was clear, he couldn't allow them to bind his hands. Domain declaration. The domain, Bina, has been declared. Yi Wu spread his shadows in all directions. The ghost giants appeared with roars at the swamp of darkness, summoned from Tartarus. The gods of Asgard hurriedly turned in their direction. Even though the ghost giants did not receive any orders, they realized what they had to do and rushed to trample the gods. Boom, 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 sixth step dragon body awakening. All powers released. The speed of the winding of the spring of death has accelerated. After pushing Yi back, Yi Wu unleashed the sixth extreme of the 8 extremes of Sword Thunder. Rumble. HMPH. Yi had anticipated a strike on his head, and he raised his protective barrier. However, unexpectedly, nothing happened. Where is it going? Yi wondered if Yi Wu was aiming for Nocturne, so he hurriedly looked in Nocturne's direction. However, this wasn't the case either. Instead, the Sword Thunder fell on Thor's sword god. Shit. For the first time, an expression of concern appeared on Yi's face. The sword god was the being who had established the illusory barrier. If I can't get to the martial king, I'll just bring the whole illusory world down. At that moment, Thor was dealing with Valdebek and more than 10 other ghost giants. He wasn't expecting an attack, and Sword Thunder instantly tore him to pieces. Crack, 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 cracks spread along the illusory world. Less than perceiving the heavens greater than. Using the power of perception that Yi Wu had achieved after integrating the various eyes he had accumulated thus far, Yi Wu succeeded in discovering and destroying the core that even the martial king hadn't figured out. Is. Yi Wu relentlessly swung Vigrid, detonating sword energy from the first extreme to the 6th extreme, one after another. The illusory world was stained with Yi Wu's signature blackish red light. Boom, boom, boom.